Yo, what's up? What's up? How's everybody doing? What's up, guys? What's up? I apologize for the laggy intro. The software was not happening, but how's everybody doing? So happy to have all you guys here as always, guys. How's it going? How's it going? What's up, buddy? What is up, guys? How's it going? Hey, everybody, thank you so much. I
What
really
is going
appreciate
on,
that,
everybody?
Jesus. What's up? What is up, guys? Let's see who's in here. Okay, what we have Wardy NYM fan page. What is up, buddy? Oh, we got a fan page already? That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. What's up, Chris? What's up? What is up, everybody? Christian. All right, guys. So this is going to be a little bit different today, as you guys can see. The segment is going to be not necessarily a Q&A with the chat like we usually do, but today it's going to be more so a breaking down our segment because here we have Richie. Shout out to Richie. You want to give a quick introduction, my man? He is at METS Media. You can catch him on YouTube, obviously. He has a bunch of different channels as well. And I hope you guys end up enjoying this. We're going to be talking about all the latest with the Mets today over a hour or two segment. And then we'll also be taking a look at the Mets' current decisions with the luxury tax, along with their roster currently shaking up, what no universal DH possibly means for Dom Smith, among others in this lab, and so much more. So as always, guys, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Help us go to 100 likes for the first short-term goal here. But Richie, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you so much for having me on your channel. I'm really excited to get kicked off with you. I've been watching your channel for a long time. And for those guys that did not know who I am, my name is Richie. I have a bunch of YouTube channels all about my favorite teams, such as the New York Jets, the New York Knicks, and the New York Mets. I also have channels brewing up about the NFL and the NBA. So Mets Media, it's one of my baby channels, I'd like to call it. I've been trying to be consistent with it, but I've been overwhelmed with all the news around my favorite teams, but I'm going to grind on Mets Media. So if you guys want to go subscribe to Mets Media, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm really excited again to kick this off with you because I feel like we're going to do great things, and it's going to be a weekly thing here on his channel, then my channel, and we got a lot of things to discuss because there's been some frenzy around the New York Mets organization all throughout the offseason. Are we going to get Trevor Bauer? Are we not getting him? Is Steve Cohen going to land that big ticket guy and open the bank like we all thought he would? He did go get Francisco Lindor, what we all love about,
Yep.
but there's so much that we can talk about. I'm really excited to dive in. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Welcome, man. I'm excited to just talk about Mets baseball.
Yeah, no, exactly. Me too. Again, I'm really happy to have you on, guys. If you don't know, we've been in the works for doing this for a while, actually, and we're finally able to get it done. So I'm really looking forward to this. So Richie, thank you again, and I'm really excited for the future between both you and I, not just with the Mets, but our other respective channels. And guys, again, if you don't know, he does have a Jets channel and a Knicks channel and so many others. So if you're like an all New York fan, especially, he is your guy, I assure you, for all that stuff. But again, so happy to have all you lovely Mets fans here. Again, I will be answering a couple questions throughout the chat as we go along, but it's mainly going to be a discussion between him and I, and we're going to be rolling real soon. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. We're going to talk about the first and most obvious topic of discussion, clearly from the thumbnail that you guys saw here, and that is regarding the latest news with the Mets and their targets. So as we touched on in the live stream both yesterday, and I've been touching on forever here on the channel, and Richie, you know this as well, the Mets have been showing interest in all these different names out there. They are a different regime now, as we know, with Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson. And the Mets now, currently at the time of recording this, going live, they're still very much in the running for Trevor Bauer. So starting off with Trevor Bauer, what are your initial thoughts on him? How do you feel he would fit with the Mets? Should they land him? Should they acquire him in this rotation? And do you think that they will land him after all without trying to jinx anything per se? Because it looks like it's between them and the Dodgers at this point in time.
Yeah, man. So going into this offseason free agency, he was number one on my list. I felt like he would fit the Mets organization, his personality. What he's doing on his own YouTube channel is so interesting. He's like building his own market. He's making videos, hyping up the Mets. He's wearing a Mets hat. And then like I'm watching, I'm like, how is this guy not going to be a Met? I mean, he's making videos talking about becoming the Mets. He's trying to tell us more about Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco that we didn't know about. And it's like, how could he not be a Met? So now, as we know, it's down to the Mets and the Dodgers. And I heard that it might be around 36 million or less per year. So I think his personality would fit perfectly with New York, with Noah Syndergaard, and being that second ace behind Jacob deGrom. I know that we don't know if it's going to be a long-term contract or a short-term contract. I feel like the Mets are trying to get a 1, 2, or creative with opt-out. So
Exactly.
they don't have to tie up a lot of money into him for the long term, because they still have to extend Lindor. They still have to extend Conforto if they want to, and they're going to have to be creative with their money. Steve Cohen is the new owner. This is the first time we've ever had an owner that is, we don't have to worry about, money. And the big topic is, are we going to go over the luxury tax this year? That's a big question mark. I feel like if the Mets are going to go all in to win the World Series this year, we all know Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson, they talk about the short-term success, but what's more important for them is that long-term. We want to build a sustainable winner. We do not want to go all in, tie all of our money into this year, trade all of our assets for this year, and then it sacrifices us 3 to 5 years down the line. I like that Steve Cohen is trying to build this team the right way, and he's being smart. He's not going out there and signing guys like all over the place, 300 million here, 400 million here. That's what everybody was expecting, but we will see. I'm really excited to see. If I predict it, I think Trevor Bauer will be a New York Met at the end.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, truly. Here, we're going to just give it one second because apparently we're dealing with some lags, apparently. So bear with us 1 second. Unfortunately, this stuff does happen, especially during live streams. I've been live streaming a lot lately. All right, things look like they're going to pick up here in a second. I know that we got some lag going. So just bear with me 1 second here. Connection interruption. Oh, no, I know. The lag is always a pain in the neck. Here, hold on 1 second. I'm going to check everything here quick. But yeah, no, you were spot on about Cohen too, especially. Okay, here we go. Let's see.
Can you guys see us?
Yeah, guys, let us know in the chat. Is the lag bad, or is the lag gain any better?
Lag happens.
What's up, Michael? Happy to have you here, my friend. Here, give us 1 second. We're going to try resolve this lag here.
Shout out to Scott in the chat. What's good, Scott?
What's up, Scott?
He's my buddy from my roommate from college. I told him to join in. Big Mets fan.
Oh, nice. Happy to have him. Okay, I think we're good now. I think the lag's good now. Okay, so hopefully fingers crossed. But yeah, I know he probably got cut up a little bit, but basically Richie was saying how Trevor Bauer would definitely help this rotation. There's no doubting that. And especially with this team line, both short-term and long success, we both agree on that, no doubt. And I think in regards to the Mets here with Trevor Bauer, I do believe that they have a stronger chance than ever to land him. I did not feel nearly as confident for a while that they would have a strong chance of getting Bauer just because of the original Springer sweepstakes and all these other options for them. But now between also Lindor and Carrasco currently on this team, it does feel like that very well could help the deciding factor a little bit more. Maybe not anything extreme, but definitely better if you ask me. So Bauer between LA, where he's originally from, as we know, and the Mets, I think the Mets have just as good of a chance as the Dodgers. I don't think that it's necessarily one completely over the other. So I would really love to see Bauer in the Mets, and it looks like as of right now, the Mets offered him, again, a 3 to 4 year deal tops, and opt-outs probably after each and every season. So, which is a win-win for both sides here, because if that means that the Mets do, in fact, land him, there isn't necessarily a long-term commitment either way. If Bauer has a dominant 2021 season and he wants to hit the market again and really go for possibly a bigger payday than what he originally got, he can do that. And, it is what it is at the end of the day. So, I'm all in favor of that, but let's get on now to the next guy, and the guy who's been in a lot of discussion as of late, that being a Nolan Arenado. Myself, I've been loving Arenado as a possible third base fit for the Mets. The Rockies over the past couple months have shown that they very much would like to part ways with Arenado because they want to lock up their other guy in the infield and Trevor Story to a long-term deal. He will be a UFA in a year from now, and he is arguably the best shortstop in all baseball. So they want to keep him over Arenado, it seems, and Arenado's contract, 6 years, $199 million. They want to part ways with it. And over the past night, at the end of my live stream last night, ended around midnight, the St. Louis Cardinals reportedly were in talks with the Rockies regarding Arenado. So Arenado might be off the list as of now. So what are your initial thoughts after hearing everything regarding Arenado as of now? The Braves have also chimed in and shown some interest, but it doesn't look like it's likely at this point in time, given the Cardinals might be able to handle it more given the cap. And apparently the Rockies are actually asking for a steep price, even with that contract.
Yeah, man, I don't think we're going to know what's going on behind the scenes with the Mets because that Francisco Lindor trade happened out of nowhere. Yep. I wake up one day and I see a Bleacher Report, breaking news, New York Mets just landed the best shortstop in the MLB. I'm like, excuse me? And then I immediately went to my channel, made my reaction video, and that just completely flipped the Mets fans upside down because I remember there was like a three-week period where Mets fans were like, yo, what's going on? I mean, we had so much high hopes for this offseason and we're so quiet. And little did we know Sandy Alderson and Steve Cohen is cooking up this trade. So we never know what's going on. They could be on the phone with the Rockies as we speak right now. But if we really want to put things in the realistically speaking, I don't think they're going to land him just because I feel like the price is way too high for a guy like Nolan Arenado. He's arguably the best third baseman defensively, and he's excellent at the plate. I just don't feel like the Rockies are going to no, excuse me. I don't think the Mets are going to want to give up what the Rockies are going to ask for, because Steve Cohen in his press conference really said that they do not want to give up their farm system because they understand that their farm system is depleted. And like I mentioned earlier, Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson are preaching long-term success. You do not trade away your top 5 prospects in your farm to build a winner for the future. I feel like the only way we can get Arenado is if we trade away our top prospects. And I feel like that's not what the Mets agenda is right now. But at the same time, if you put things in perspective, trading for a guy like Nolan Arenado just elevates this roster to immediately top 2, top 3 in the National League, if we're not there already. But it's going to be it's a pipeline dream for us. Like you said, the Cardinals are in discussions, the Braves. But if I'm Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson, I feel like I'll put my money into Lindor, because that should be the priority in terms of money right now, because he's a free agent after this year. I'm not worried about that, but that's definitely should be the priority before they worry about going out there and getting him, because we do not want to trade for a guy like Francisco Lindor and for him to be a 1-year rental. So I don't think that Nolan Arenado will be a Met. Would I welcome him? 100%. I mean, we're talking
Absolutely.
about Nolan Arenado here. I would love him, but being realistically here, I don't see him parting ways with the Colorado Rockies and coming to New York just because of what Steve Cohen said himself. We have a really depleted farm system right now, and we want to build that farm system. And the only way we get Arenado is if we ship away our entire farm. So that's really my take on it.
Okay. All right. I agree. I will say, though, that I don't fully agree in regards to shipping off the whole farm for Arenado, because while the asking price does seem high, that very well could be more just on-field talent currently. The Rockies, yes, they would like to help out the prospects, but if you're looking at it from things 50-50 here, when you look at how Cleveland was backed in a corner in a Lindor, and the Mets not even giving up anything higher than a 9th prospect, 2 prospects, number amazing. 9 and 10, along with obviously Andres Jimenez and Rosario might be dealt to the Reds at this point because he's on the trading block again, it seems. But Arenado is interesting because when you have that contract of 6 years, $199 million. And for a Rockies team that is clearly desperate to get rid of it because they don't want to lose Story, it's a ticking time bomb. And Arenado may very well not even be willing to opt out of his contract in a year from now because, yes, while he doesn't necessarily love the fact that the Rockies haven't been a competitor, he also doesn't, who's to say that he's going to get more money than what he's currently making right now? And with a flooded market of free agents, including other guys that are big in the infield, including Chris Bryant, as we know that we're going to touch on here in a minute, Javi Baez, Francisco Lindor at the time of recording this, even though I do believe the Mets are going to lock him up long term. We'll expand on that further today. On all these other guys, I don't see how Arenado would opt out, even in that situation. So for me, I've been saying this for a while. If the Mets made a deal happen for Arenado, JD Davis, Brandon Nimmo, those guys make plenty of sense right away. Out of top 10 prospect and maybe something else, but again, we simply don't know. The asking price seems to be high according to the reports right now. So if they are asking for the farm, then absolutely I'm not in favor for it, no doubt. But before we get on to anything else, I just want to give a quick shout out to Michael King for the donation, $5 dono. Thank you so much, Michael. Get some dono hype in the chat as always. Really appreciate that, my man. Really appreciate all you guys being here as always. So, great thoughts about Arenado. Again, I'm not sure if they're asking for the farm for him, but the fact that they are asking for a high price as of now is telling that probably isn't the route the Mets go down.
But hey, listen, if you said if it's JD Davis and Nimmo and outside of a top 10 prospect, I'm down.
Yeah,
I was just saying, like you said, if they ask for the farm, maybe not. But if they can be creative and give up some players that are on the Mets right now, like JD and Nimmo, and potentially somebody else in the farm that's not that high on the ranks, and they want to cut that salary off, I'm all for it. Trust me.
Yeah,
you bring up a great point.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Arenado. I'm sure I'll be touching on him in a separate video here on the channel real soon. But getting on to third base, staying on that, let's talk about Kris Bryant, because Bryant is a guy that's been connected with the Mets over the past couple months too. The Cubs, originally looking like that they are very much going more so in a rebuild, selling off on Yu Darvish, as we know, also selling off on other guys, non-tendering Kyle Schwarber, and Theo Epstein stepping down before all of that was kind of a clear indication that, okay, they're trying to free up salary and they're trying to basically do a rebuild / retool. And knowing that there are three big names in this roster, and Rizzo, Baez, and Bryant are all free agents this upcoming season after the 2021 season, was kind of telling that was a route that they were going down, including with the rest of the NL Central outside of the Cardinals. We're really subtracting, not adding a lot of on-field ready talent for the roster, especially in the Darvish trade. All they got was Zach Davies, who's a decent back of the rotation starter for the most part, but outside of that, all they got were prospects that weren't even top prospects for Darvish, who was one of the Cy Young finalists in the short 2020 season. So now we find out that the Cubs here since then, however, have in fact acquired, that being in Jock Peterson from the LA Dodgers, outfielder, another strong bat that really can smash righty pitching, being a lefty, very similar to Kyle Schwarber, but they get him on a one-year deal under $10 million when Schwarber signs a one-year $10 million deal with the Nationals after being non-tendered. So the direction currently for the Cubs, at least that's what the reports are indicating, is that they want to expand the payroll a little bit more and try to compete in the Central, because they feel that they have just as good of a chance as Eddie, even after losing guys like Darvish. At least that's what the reports today are indicating. So I'm not sure where that stands for Kris Bryant, because Kris Bryant is a guy that, one, seems like he's going to be on his way out sooner than later, regardless if he's traded or when free agency hits. He's another one of Scott Boras's clients, as we know, so you know how Boras works. Normally, he would make these players drag out closer to free agency to go for a big name payday. And then if you look at Bryant currently in the factor with the Mets have shown interest in him in the past. Reports were indicating that prior to the Lindor trade. And he has been in a lot of discussion as of late with the Toronto Blue Jays, but that has died down because the Blue Jays added infielder Marcus Semien from the A's in free agency. So now when we look at Bryant, the Mets want to address third base. It seems obvious by now, but I'm not completely sold on if Bryant will be the answer if they are in fact still trying to compete for this upcoming season. So what are your thoughts on Kris Bryant? Do you think there's still a solid chance that he will be traded this offseason, and will the Mets be one of those teams that are a front runner?
You see, the question about Kris Bryant that I have is it going to be a one-year rental? Are we trading away some prospects or some players on this team to go win this year, and then we're going to let Kris Bryant walk in free agency after that? I think that's the biggest question, because we traded for Francisco Lindor, which is a home run. I'm so high on that trade, as 99.9, if not 100% of Mets fans are on board with that trade that they did. But are they going to re-sign Kris Bryant to money? Are we going to give him a big payday and he's going to be our future third baseman? I don't know, because Kris Bryant, ever since his excellent seasons a couple years ago, I feel like he's been kind of like disappointing. I'm not saying he's a bad baseball player by any means, but he's definitely not living up to the standards to where he was a couple seasons ago. It really depends on what we have to give up in order to get him. I know the Mets are tied up into conversations for trading for Kris Bryant, but I really don't want to trade for guys that are one-year deals, because we're going to get talk about this later on the stream. But right now, Michael Conforto, Stroman, Noah Syndergaard, Lindor, and say hypothetically we do land Kris Bryant. That's 5 pending free agents after this year. Are we going to sign 3 of the 5? Or are we going to re-sign 2 of the 5? Or all 5 of them walking out the door? I think that's the bigger question. And I feel like Sandy Alderson and Steve Cohen, they're thinking of the long term. I'm not saying they definitely have a plan. I guarantee if they go out and get Kris Bryant, they already have their mind made if they're going to sign him long term or not, or just, ship him off. So I feel like there's going to be a very good mix of short-term and long-term thinking. And it's going to be very coherent of what their decision is. Are we going all in to win a World Series in 2021? If that's the case, then you go and trade for a guy like Kris Bryant. If they really want to build a foundation, which we already have, add to our young core with guys that's going to be part of the long-term success, then I don't think Kris Bryant is part of the answer unless you want to re-sign him, if that makes sense. It's kind of all over the place, but that's really where I'm at, because I feel like trading for a guy that's on a one-year deal is a little skeptical in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always risk. Look at the Lindor trade, for instance. The Mets, obviously, if Lindor was in an extended contract, would have had to literally given up the farm to acquire him. And Carrasco, that was such a win-win. And now it's a very similar situation. At least that's what I've been under the belief for a while. Basically, up until today, where I have my more questions now, because it wasn't just Bryant, but Hendricks, who is their other strong pitcher, more in the latter half of his career, but is still a solid pitcher in the back of the rotation, was connected to the Blue Jays. Blue Jays have been in connection there. They might still go after Hendricks, but if it's just Bryant alone, it would make a lot of sense for the Mets to go after it because, one, if the Mets do in fact land Chris Bryant, they're not getting him for a rental. Let's be real. Same thing with Lindor. They're not going to trade away any assets on this roster for a big name guy if they truly don't believe that they can extend him. And look, does that mean that's a guarantee that Bryant would be extended? Of course it doesn't. Look, he's a Scott Boras client at the end of the day. He very well could be more enticed at free agency even if the Mets have a deep run. But I am firmly under the belief that the Mets are in fact going to be competing not just for playoffs next season, but World Series aspirations. And because of doing so, that's why they want to address third base. That's why they want to shore up the defense as much as they can. So Bryant would make a lot of sense. The asking price is the biggest thing, however, because a couple weeks back, really a month ago now, there were reports that indicated that the Cubs were interested in Francisco Alvarez, who's one of the Mets' top prospects, catching prospect, and a deal for Bryant, which would not make sense, especially when you look at what they gave up for people like Lindor, for instance. So Bryant would be great for the Mets. He would easily help this team really get onto the top of having World Series aspirations. That infield, him and Lindor, would be nasty. He needs a change of scenery. I think we all agree. He's still a really good player, but in 2020, he had a short season. He only played like 30 games due to injury. So take that into account. And that's why his numbers were low. In 2019, he had a really strong year. Again, his biggest year was obviously either his freshman or sophomore year in the league. I think it was his sophomore year when they won the World Series that year for the Cubs. But still a solid player in the prime of his career. I think a change of scenery is needed with him. And another situation, I've been saying this with all these different guys, but it really does hold true. I don't want to see them leave, but Nimmo would make so much sense for the Cubs because one of their biggest issues the past couple years, I'm not sure you're aware, is the on base. They struggle heavily getting on base. Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, these guys have pop in their bat, no doubt, but they all have been pretty subpar with their on-base percentages past couple years in regards to the overall lineup. They need guys on base more constantly to help those runs come in. And what is Nimmo known for? Literally is on base. That's why a lot of people view him as a top 10 center fielder in the league, even when he has strong defensive woes. And then you add in J.D. Davis, because Davis would thrive in a more increased role being the third base replacement for Bryant. And again, it's very similar to Arenado in that sense because they're both essentially rentals, and because of how the Rockies are backed in the corner, even though that they're asking for a high price, and how the Cubs are a team that really doesn't look like they're going to be competing much. They're going to lose on these free agents. I just don't see how it would make sense for the Cubs side of things to keep Bryant this season, knowing that he's more than likely going to walk at the year's end.
I agree, man. I agree. I definitely think that you're right on point. I definitely think also that there's going to be something that's going to shock us before spring training. I feel like there's something in the works that we don't know, whether it's the Arenado trade, whether it's a Chris Bryant trade. There's something that's going to happen before the spring training that we're going to be like, wow, didn't expect that. That's my prediction. I just feel like there's so much that they're doing behind the scenes. And of course, we had to go through that crazy GM switch with Jared Porter, the whole scandal. We got a new GM in, and I have full confidence in this front office to be more creative and make sure. The biggest question I have is, are we going over the luxury tax this year? What do you think?
Okay, all right. Well, we can segue into that if you want. That's exactly what we'll do then. That's perfectly fine. And then from there, we can talk about a little bit more players. So here, I'm going to switch this up right here for everyone to see. I'm going to change the graphic. We'll get on to luxury tax. It's a great question. A lot of people are very curious about the luxury tax. And look, there is no guarantee one way or the other, but so many reports are indicating, and Sandy Alderson made a further statement over the past day or so, how basically the luxury tax, it's not a huge priority for them. It never really was. At least that's what the according was. If you look at Jared Porter, when he was still GM for the Mets over the past month, he did make a statement, and I quote, "There is not a sand in a line." And there's not a line in the sand, I should say, in regards to the luxury tax threshold being their stopping point to address this lineup for the offseason, because the Mets, if they want both short-term and long-term success, if they want Trevor Bauer that we have talked about plenty, they're going to go over that threshold. Because as of now, according to Andy Martino, so it's Martino, take it with a grain of salt, but the Mets are currently working with right around $185 million, including in-house pay. Before that, it's really just around between 33 and 35 mil before the 210 luxury tax threshold. But there's a strong belief throughout the community that the Mets, as long as they are going to address all the holes in their lineup, they're going to go over the luxury tax, and it's not going to be an issue for them. There's a lot of speculation with the next bargaining agreement a year from now that for 2022, there might not even be a threshold, or the threshold will be really expanded. So, and we also have taken into consideration that I know it might be hard to wrap our head around because we haven't necessarily seen it yet, but the Mets owner does realistically have more money than he can part way with than basically any other owner in the league. There's a reason why he's 3 times richer than any other, the closest owner in all the MLB. He has money that he's working with, even with what has just happened with the stock market and everything. I really believe that the Mets are going to push the threshold and go beyond it should they wish to, and it would make perfect sense for them in a scenario where they are trying to go all in, as long as they know that a big part of it is to, in fact, extend their guys that we will get to later in this video. So what are your thoughts on the threshold? Do you think it's really a stopping point for them, or do you think it's just basically all fluff? If they go over it, it won't be surprising.
Yeah, I really don't think it's surprising if they go over it. I expected them to go over it right when Steve Cohen took over the New York Mets organization. And Steve Cohen even tweeted out himself a couple of days ago that, you know, all the stock market nonsense that's been going on the past couple of days, somebody tweeted at Steve Cohen, hey, is this going to have any impact on, you know, the payroll for us? And Steve Cohen responded, he said, nothing, you know, the stock market and the Mets, they're completely separate. One has nothing to do with the other. You know, I don't think that's going to have anything to do with each other. And Steve Cohen, like you said, is 3 times richer than any other owner in the entire MLB. So it's like, if we go over the luxury tax, he's literally paying pocket change out of it. You know, it's like crazy how rich he is. He can afford it. And it's so awesome that Steve Cohen bought the New York Mets, not for an investment purpose. As you guys know, I'm a big Jets fan and a big Knicks fan. Those two owners, for example, Woody Johnson with the Jets, James Nolan for the Knicks, they bought the franchises for profit. They're not huge diehard fans of the franchises. They don't really care. They don't really have a little connection to the fans, which is why the Knicks and the Jets have been terrible. Steve Cohen has grew up on Long Island like myself and ended up being a multi-billionaire and bought the New York Mets for one purpose, and that's to rejuvenate the fan base and bring them back to prosperity and winning World Series. That's the difference. And he's going to put his money where his mouth is, and if he has to go over the luxury tax in order to win, he will do it. So that's why it's exciting that we have an owner, and that's one, smart. He's successful with his hedge fund. Obviously, he's going to replicate the business foundation he did with Point 72, and he's going to replicate it with the Mets in terms of, you know, building a staff, having, you know, scouts, a farm system. There's just so much money that's going to be invested in this organization that we don't even understand, that the Wilpons did not even value. Like, for example, the farm system, he's going to put so much more resources and money into hiring people and developing staff members to develop our young prospects. And over a course of time, we're going to see it all pay off. But we're not going to see the Steve Cohen blueprints on this team in the short term, unless it's the big market trades, the behind the scenes type of things, such as the farm system and the resources and building a staff. That's all going to come in like 3 to 5 years down the line. I really predict that because he has a vision and he's extremely successful. And to get back to the luxury tax, I feel like Steve Cohen will go over that threshold if need be, such as signing Trevor Bauer. And I feel like if they do sign Trevor Bauer, that guarantees them over the luxury tax. Is that true?
If they get Bauer, depending on the AAV, they're going to be right about over, because of, if it's according to Martino saying that they're at 185, which again, give or take, if that is the true with in-house things as well, then yes, they would definitely be going over, because they're paying at least $30 million more than likely a year for Bauer.
Yeah, I feel like signing Trevor Bauer, they're definitely in the market. I also saw a report where they're set on their price, and if it becomes a bidding war, then the Mets are going to pull out. Like, they don't want to bid for him. So they have a set price. And whether that's, we don't know, it's between them and the Dodgers. And I feel like the Mets have their price, and it's going to be up to Trevor Bauer. Do I want to go to the Mets? And he is so high in the Mets. I mean, how many YouTube videos have he created on his own channel, hyping us up, hyping up Steve Cohen, hyping up every single acquisition, the fan base? I don't understand how you can I know he's making content about other teams like the Angels, even though they're not in it anymore. He was making videos about every single franchise that's interested in him, and he's just trying to build his own brand, which is very smart of him. But I really genuinely feel like it's going to be in Trevor Bauer's decision to look around the market. Where do I want to go? Where is my brand going to flourish the most? And that's New York City. Like, are you kidding me? The New York is the biggest market in the entire world. So if Trevor Bauer's smart, he comes to the Mets, he learns from the greatest pitcher of all time in Jacob deGrom, and we get Syndergaard back, and our rotation is going to be absolutely ridiculous, and we go win that World Series. So obviously I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's just really
not too
really
far
crazy.
Ahead, don't worry.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think, like, if we do get Trevor Bauer, like, our starting rotation is ridiculous.
It's disgusting. It's not even fair.
Oh my gosh. When Syndergaard comes back, like, who's going to be our fifth starter? Carrasco or Stroman? Like,
I know. That's such a good problem to have.
And then we have so much depth. Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. It would be great. And you hit the nail on the head. Backtracking just a quick second before we get back onto Bauer. Cohen, absolutely. Yeah, I think what really separates him from the rest is not obviously his worth, but also because he's made it obvious he cares about this fan base. He's a diehard Mets fan like us. We've been every rational Mets fan that has been paying attention to this story for a while knows just how night and day this regime is to the previous one. And I get it that they haven't signed every big name player, but they're not going to act like drunken sailors either. They're going to do what they truly feel is best fit, both short term and long term. So yeah, no, Cohen is a dream. I simply could not be happier about the man. He tweeted again earlier today saying, all right, let's get back to the Mets. Like, talking about all the controversy from yesterday. So I think that's great. And Bauer, again, would bring so much to this rotation, because at that point, just to add on for anyone that is maybe a little curious here, it would be deGrom to GOAT number 1. Then you have Bauer at number 2. Number 3, you could really debate between, this is with Thor out of the lab because of Tommy John. He won't be back till probably May or June. But you would have one of Carrasco and Stroman, and then David Peterson. Like, that's disgusting. Then when Thor's back in that rotation, probably as a number 3 starter, then it's like, all right, you literally don't have room for David Peterson. So what are you going to do there? Like, it's a great problem for the Mets to have. Again, they don't need Trevor Bauer, but they want Trevor Bauer. And what a couple hints at for people in regards to Trevor Bauer that they should take into consideration. One, he has been speaking glowingly of the Mets, as we know, since Cohen came in the regime. Sandy Alderson called him out on WFAN with Carter Roberts and said how he would really thrive in the Big Apple, and then he really appreciated that, Bauer said on Twitter shortly after. And then if you also look at everything else that's currently been happening with them, you can take a good grasp at the fact that with having Bauer in this situation now, the city of Big Apple is different than LA. He's grown up in LA. He knows what it's like to be in LA. Don't get me wrong. He wants to win now. That is a huge factor into things, no doubt. But if he really wants to build his brand, I would make the fair argument that there probably isn't anything better than New York and this type of Mets team. He can be with some former teammates in Lindor and Carrasco as well. He can be with Trevor May, as we know, who's another social media personality, the Mets bullpen piece that they signed this offseason, and all these other things. I really think it would gel well with them and help with this new regime when he's proven himself. Everyone knows him in LA and Cali. It's not like he would necessarily be the face and Cali the way he would for the Mets. Even with having deGrom, Bauer would be right behind him. And when you look at the Dodgers are loaded as it is. They just came off a World Series. So again, it really is kind of a coin flip, but I do believe that there is plenty of value for Bauer considering the option of going to the Mets more so than the Dodgers. And I try to say that with the utmost unbiased, if you will. I know it can be tough, but again, there's a lot of good factors both for and against it.
Absolutely, man. You bring up excellent points. I noticed that we have 326 people in the stream. That is awesome.
Yes,
welcome in, everybody.
How's
if you guys did not
doing?
Already, hit that thumbs up button for my guy. We have 96 likes. Let's get this over 100 likes for my guy Tyler. Run up that
guys,
thumb up
smash
button.
that like and subscribe button. As always, help us get to 100 likes. We got to get a 150 after that as well. And make sure to subscribe to Mets Media after you watch this, of course, or even during it, whenever you can, guys. Again, this is a great weekly segment we will be doing here on the channel. We're just getting started, trust me. But again, thank you so much, Richie. So now let's get on to, I'm trying to think here. Let's backtrack a little bit for a second. I know that we're still on the luxury tax topic, but let's talk about one or two more players here because they're ones that aren't getting as much talk currently when they deserve it. That being in Eugenio Suarez and Sonny Gray, for instance, because these are two guys at the Mets, according to Mets Mirage, just over the past, I want to say, couple weeks now when I did my video on that did really well. but industry source indicated that the Mets were showing interest, having talks with the Reds on a possible blockbuster, including those two players. So, and my belief is that the Mets do not land Bauer because he say goes to the Dodgers, for instance. Sonny Gray and Suarez could very well be that plan, that really sneaky one, that blockbuster that we don't simply know much about yet. I do believe the Mets are not done in regards to trades, and I do believe that regardless if Bauer is in this rotation or not, they're going to continue to add into this lineup. I don't think Bauer will be the stopping point, and if Bauer doesn't come, that's even a bigger reason to say that, okay, are they going to very well go after JBJ still and possibly Suarez and Sonny Gray? So what are your initial thoughts about that? I would not be against Sonny Gray at all. There are a lot of people worried about how he did in the Bronx, but a lot more factors went into simply him being in a bigger market. And Suarez with that great slugging bat, still on a good contract, 3 years left, I believe. I think he's a free agent at the 2024 offseason or 2025, if my memory's not mistaken. Just great stuff overall. So what's your initial thoughts on everything on that front, if that's still an option for the Mets?
Yeah, man, I think that is when I said earlier, there's definitely something going to happen that we're not going to expect. And I feel like this is the exact trade scenario that can come out of left field. And I feel like the only way they do this, if Trevor Bauer does not sign with the Mets, I would welcome Suarez and Sonny Gray with open arms. We need a solid third baseman. And I feel like him and Pete Alonso would just I don't even know where they'll bat in the lineup because our lineup's so stacked right now. Would it be 4 and 5 or 3 and 4? But then where's Conforto? I don't even want to get into the lineups, but those are two sluggers in our lineup. We can get Alonso and Suarez in the same one because that would just open up our lineup to be so deep. And I feel like he's a very solid third baseman. And like we said, that as a whole, do we have our trust in JD Davis? Is he going to be our future? I don't think so. So I really do believe that if we do not get Trevor Bauer, the Mets front office is going to pivot and they're going to call and see what the price is for them. And they're going to get creative. Somehow, the Mets got Francisco Lindor without giving up a top 10 prospect. If they can pull that off again and be creative and get a really good deal done, then I'm all for getting Sonny Gray. I know the perception of, oh, well, Sonny Gray didn't do well with the Yankees, so why would he do well with the Mets? Well, you never know. He has a lot of talent. Obviously, he has a lot of success in this league, and he's familiar with the New York market. It's not like he's going to be, a little nervous out there. And he's also going to be in a room with Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard and all these, really good pitchers. So you never know. I feel like the only way we get Suarez and Sonny Gray is if we do not land Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I completely agree. I will say this, however, I do think Suarez is still an option, just not Gray at that point, because they would want to get a third baseman. So true. I wouldn't take him off the radar. I might even touch on that in a future video. But quick shout out to Christian for the donation, my friend. Shout out to you, my man. Don't know hype for Christian. The only way we have an issue with the luxury tax in our picks is if we exceed 237 million. We can add Bauer and Bryant plus one other and be fine. Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, Christian. Again, thank you so much for the donation, my friend. And guys, smash that like and subscribe button as always. But great point by him as well. They do need to reach a certain limit in order to really have some issues in regards to giving up picks and that stuff. So I'm not against that at all. Again, there is always going to be risk with going over the luxury tax, but if the Mets do it, I do feel that they have a strong knowledge that this is not a problem whatsoever. And Suarez, again, would be a really strong fit for the Mets. He might be the more realistic option too, especially if Bryant very well is becoming more of a hefty price if the Cubs are still trying to compete this upcoming season, and Arenado kind of looking like the odd man. We're looking on the odd man out in regards to the Arenado sweepstakes right now.
We also want to, just want to add something
Sure.
real quick. Maybe our future third baseman is chilling right now in our farm system, Brett Batty.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how far away he is to getting into the league, but I heard great things about him. And when do you think he's going to get called up?
Beatty, as of right now, he's definitely not getting called up for another 2 years. These guys usually take a while. Like I'm not trying to, have some PTSD with Jared Kelenic here, but Kelenic, even with him being, just hear me out.
Him up.
Kelenic, even with him being the top prospect in baseball now, it has taken him a couple years to get there. Now he's finally going to look like he's going to break out, but he's been coveted since he got drafted, and it took easily a solid 3-4 years now. So it normally takes a bit for these guys. Beatty, I don't see up for another 2 years. So that's a huge thing too. That's why Suarez could even be that more realistic, because Suarez isn't on a long-term deal like Arenado or what you would truly be trying to sign Chris Bryant to should you trade for him. Because Bryant, as we know, is probably going to be looking anywhere from a 7 to 10 year deal, easily over $200 million for his next contract. So that's another fair point to take. And that's also why a guy like Mauricio, while I really do enjoy him for the Mets, could very well be one of those prospects that gets traded if for a bigger deal, because of Lindor being in spot at shortstop more than likely for the next decade. So that's why.
I agree, man. And I just feel like we have a lot of assets in our farm system that is brewing, not as much as we want, but definitely keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a long term. I'm really excited to see what our farm system looks like down the line, because this is like I mentioned earlier in the stream, this is a new regime that we got here. And I'm excited for this upcoming draft, because I feel like that we're really putting way more resources in funding the scouts, funding everybody in order to develop a franchise properly, like we have not done with the Wilpons. But the one thing I will say is we got to give Sandy Alderson a ton of credit, because this past decade, he's the reason why we had this beautiful young core in place with Conforto, Pete Alonso, the list goes on and on. So I'm excited for it. I just want to bring up that prospect because I feel like you said, maybe bringing in a guy like Suarez would be perfect, because he'll be here for 3 years max. And then maybe by that time, Brett's ready to come up. So You never know.
Yeah, no, fair. Exactly. And one more guy that we should touch on before we basically get into a little bit further on the Mets and their pending UFAs a year from now. And basically that going hand with the luxury tax as well. But Jackie Bradley Jr., he's been a very interesting topic to
JBJ.
many, because obviously his connection with Zach Scott is strong. Zach Scott, spending over the past decade in the Red Sox organization, knows JBJ pretty well. Literally his entire career he spent with him during their time in the organization together. But when you look at JBJ, there's a lot of concerns with his bat. Personally, I'm not worried about his bat nearly as much as others. I think that's really a fallacy if you ask me. He had a really strong 2020 season, and before that, he's still around at least a 250 average, which is perfectly fine, because look, you're not going for JBJ unless you have the intent to go for basically having more of a defensively reliable guy. If he doesn't have a great bat, that's fine, because that's not what you're getting for a guy of Jackie Bradley Jr.'s caliber. You're getting a guy that you know is a Gold Glover, has been fantastic, still in the prime of his career. As long as you don't have to cough up too much for him, great, but that's where things become an issue. Because one, Sandy Alderson over the past month, prior to George Springer signing with the Jays, did state how they were in the market for center field help, especially a righty versus a lefty. Because if you bring JBJ and you have an all lefty outfield, it's not necessarily the most enticing things. There are reasons to be concerned there. And then when you look at JBJ's apparent asking costs, there are reports that they're currently, I don't know how much they hold currently, but it's between 15 and 20 million. If that's the case, I don't see the Mets giving him upwards of 20 mil a year, even if it's, say, a 2-3 year deal. That might be a little too costly. So what are your initial thoughts on JBJ? Do you think that he will go to the Mets? Because I'm under the impression that while anything is possible, and the Mets are prioritizing center field more than anything else currently, according to John Heyman over the past day on the Fan, I don't believe that JBJ is going to land with a Met. I just have a gut feeling that they're going to go for a righty bat, possibly like a Kevin Pillar or among some others in free agency or the trade route.
Yeah, man, I feel like the Mets are swifting gears, and Sandy Alderson is learning from, I wouldn't say his mistakes, but he had way more of an offensive mindset when he was the GM with the Mets. And now he mentioned that in his press conference, and he's aware of it, and he's trying to pivot and get a lot of defense. And we did that right away with getting Francisco Lindor at shortstop, James McCann at catcher. Those are two defensive upgrades. Now we need to get a defensive center fielder. And I feel like JBJ fits that mold perfectly. Juan Lagares personally was one of my favorite Mets. Obviously he wasn't that good, but I just loved him in that center field.
His glove was awesome.
Yeah, I love defense in baseball. It's one of the best parts of baseball. Whenever I played baseball growing up as a kid, I always loved playing short, playing center field. I felt like defense was like within me. That was what I loved. So I feel like bringing in a guy like JBJ would make so much sense, because I don't know if we have that defensive-minded guy in center field yet that we need. We need to have somebody off the bench, but at the same time, if his asking price is $15 to $20 million, then he cannot come off the bench, JBJ. So it's a big question. The one thing I will say that is definitely something that you brought up is we cannot have an all left-handed outfield, and that is definitely a concern. My uncle, he is a diehard Red Sox fan and a diehard Mets fan, which is very strange, right?
Yeah.
He loves both of them. So he's always texting me. He's like, are the Mets getting JBJ? And he's giving me really good insights on what they should do. And his thing that he keeps saying is what you just said. We do not need a left-handed outfield. We need to get good bats. I'm not concerned about his bat because he batted around 283 in 2020. Yes, the pandemic season didn't have a full year, but I feel like if they can get creative, move on from somebody else, trade Nimmo for a right-handed bat and then get JBJ to be that defensive center fielder, because I feel like if we have JBJ in center field, Francisco Lindor at short, that our defense just went through the roof. I feel like defense has been such a weakness for this Mets team in the past couple of years, and they're trying to, because that's the old school classic baseball that has made, baseball such a great sport, in my opinion. And I feel like the trajectory of the future of baseball is definitely more offense mind, but I feel like we need to get more defense in this Mets organization, and JBJ just checks off all the boxes. But it's definitely a big discussion. Is he worth $15 to $20 million? Not too sure. Is he going to be playing every day in center field? Do we want an all left-handed outfield? There's a lot of questions, man.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue, and I honestly don't disagree with you at all with everything you got to say. I think that JBJ wouldn't be a bad option. He very well could be the option they go down, but there's been a lot of uncertainty there for a bit now as to if he's going to be the perfect fit for the Mets, basically, because of the lefty concern and the asking price as well, because he wants certainty that he's going to be starting every day in center, and the Mets, as of right now, at least what reports are indicating, is that they have not given that to him. Kind of similar to the Brad Hand situation where the Mets couldn't guarantee Brad Hand that you're going to be the closer. So, it is what it is at the end of the day. But let's segue right into getting closer to, I want to say, oh wait, you know what? That just reminded me of the DH. I don't know if I actually have a header for not or anything. That's perfectly fine. I'll just take the luxury tax thing down for now. But in regards to the DH, I think that's a topic we should talk about next, because when you're talking about the outfield, you have to look no further than guys like Dom Smith. And Dom is a guy that we all love. He had a tremendous short 2020 season, as we know. I've been following Dom. I literally saw his first game when he was in Double-A. Against in Reading when he was still with the Bennington Mets, and that was when he was still really out of shape, like really overweight, because of the fact that the guy struggles with sleeping big time. He has I'm pretty sure he has sleep apnea, but he finally came over it over the past year and a half, which is why you've seen tremendous strides in his bat and in his game, because he's actually living a healthier lifestyle now, which is pretty interesting. But Dom, a great guy. He is not a left fielder, as we know. He's a first baseman. And the Mets, when they did not have a DH in place, especially, they were toying with having Dom Smith and left for now, so you can have his bat in there every day, him and Alonso. So the reports as of now is that the MLB denied the having the universal DH because it was in connection with the package of having expanded playoffs. Now, I'm not in favor of expanded playoffs. I thought they're a joke, especially for the short 2020 season. It is what it is, but I want things traditional personally. I'm not a fan of expanded playoffs, so I don't like that they're packaged together. I know that it's because of, trying to get an edge for discussions going forward a year from now, but all indication as of now is that there probably will not be a DH in the NL in the 2021 season, which will very much have a drastic effect on the Mets, something that I'm truly not happy about. I think that's putting it lightly. So time will tell on that front. But if there is a scenario where there is no DH for the upcoming season, what are your thoughts about Dom Smith? Do you think the Mets are going to keep him in left field and possibly have it where at center you possibly go for JBJ or more defensively sound guy to really cover the groundwork where you can deal with that liability there in left, knowing that the bat and the balance at center field will make up for it in the end?
Yeah, man, the DH is such an interesting topic. To be honest with you guys, I was against the DH in the NL before we experienced it for ourselves in the 2020 season. I love the classic, the traditional way of AL and NLs separate. The Mets are always the best pitching team. Hitting pitchers team. Like Jacob deGrom is a great hitter for a pitcher. Syndergaard hits nukes. When we did have Steve Matz, he can hit. So I always loved the Mets having great hitting pitchers. So I love them not having a DH. But after experiencing it for the first time and seeing that we have a guy like Dom Smith, we need the DH, man. We need the DH. And it's really frustrating that we might not get the DH because Dom Smith, man, he lit it up in the 2020 season. He's one of our best bats. He was the most consistent out there. And it's going to be really interesting how they really, get creative with this, because he's definitely a liability in left field defensively. And you guys just heard me preach that we need defense on this team. What do we do? It's a big question. It's such a big question. Do we keep Dom Smith as our everyday left fielder just because we want his bat in the lineup? Do we flip around on first base? One day, Dom Smith, one day Pete Alonso? No, that's not the answer. You need to have an everyday first baseman. It's such a crazy discussion. And say Dom Smith's in left field with our lineup right now, it will be Dom in left, Nimmo in center, Conforto in right. Do we sign JBJ? Then where does Nimmo fit? It's just such a interesting conversation. And I feel like the front office has a plan for both sides. When Sandy Alderson got asked in a press conference about the DH, he said, whether it's true or not, that is something they're not even discussing. That is not a problem, that it's a DH or not. It doesn't matter. But Mets fans know it's a big deal if there's a DH on this team or not, because
absolutely
we need it. Like you said, Tyler, it doesn't impact the team more than the New York Mets, because we need Dom Smith in the lineup every single day offensively. He's that big of a threat. And if we have a DH this year, our offense could be potentially top 5 in the MLB.
Oh, I don't even think it's potentially. I think it is at that point. It was the best. It was literally had the highest OPS in the short 2020 seasons. Like,
we just need to get those runners in, and it's game over.
And I really think they will at this point. Lindor's going to bring so much to that from. But okay, so I know we both are in agreement. We love the DH. We want the DH to be here. But in the scenario where there's not a DH in the upcoming season, what do you think the Mets are going to do? Do you think that they're going to be willing to have Dom in the left field and have a better center fielder possibly? Do you think that they still roll with Nimmo and possibly now Mora Jr. as a platoon? What are your thoughts on that? Because Dom very well, I don't want to see him go, but if we're in a situation for the next year where we don't know what to do with Dom, then do you consider toying with the idea of trading him to get a big name player in a position of need? What are your thoughts on that? I don't want to see Dom go. This is just my thoughts on basically what could possibly happen, if at all.
No, yeah, man. It's discussion that no one wants to talk about, because Dom is like one of those guys that he's a fan favorite. You saw how emotional he was all year, and he just looks like a guy that just loves being in New York, and he puts his heart out there. He went from being out of shape, and everybody was calling him, maybe this guy's not meant to be in the major league. And then he just slims down, turns it around, and just hitting nukes, getting on base all the time. And he is a better defensive first baseman than Pete Alonso, to put in frank. But at the same time, Pete Alonso is our future first baseman. That's my opinion. Some people can disagree. We know that Pete Alonso had a very off season last year, but I think his potential is through the roof. If the DH is not in the NL and we're forced to put Dom Smith in left field, I think that the Mets, being them, not saying this is what I would do, but they're definitely going to field calls for Dom Smith just because of it's not a fit. We can't have Dom Smith in left field every day defensively. And it's either his trade value is probably at his peak right now after his ridiculous season last year. So it's either they phone calls and say, what could we get for Dom Smith? And if they can flip Dom for something phenomenal, like a superstar, not a superstar, but like someone that would really make an impact, then you pull the trigger, because we already have our starting first baseman, Pete Alonso. But if they want to keep on to Dom Smith, which I prefer they do, because Dom Smith is like, we love Dom Smith. I don't want to see him anywhere else. Then they got to keep him in left field. They got to cross their fingers and hope that he can develop defensively. And I feel like they got to be creative in really locking down the center field. Nimmo, in my opinion, is not a great defensive center fielder. He's more of a corner outfielder.
Exactly.
Conforto will lock down that right field. So if they do roll with Dom Smith in left field, they're gonna have to get creative and bring in a defensive center fielder. But then what does that mean for Nimmo? Are we moving on from Nimmo? Is he coming off the bench? Is he a utility guy? There's so many questions, and I'm sorry I can't answer your question, because it's like, what do we do? It's honestly, I wouldn't say it's a problem. It's a dilemma, but it's a really good dilemma to have. That's the luxury of this conversation that we're having, and we're all like, what do we do? This is great, guys. Like, Mets fans, we're not used to this. We're not used to having like all the depth at these positions. Like, wait, if we get a DH, we have so many good players. What do we do with them? This is a good problem to have.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I don't agree with you at all here in this situation. It's just, I really hope for the Mets' sake that we can get the DH developed. But if it isn't in the NL, then hopefully the Mets have things figured out. I think they will. I've been preaching this all offseason. I do believe that in regards to the Mets and their offseason approach, they have basically options A through F all figured out, even with the Jared Porter situation. But Zach Scott being in, I just feel that they're going to figure everything out. I do believe that they will add on to defense. And Nimmo, I do completely agree. I've been saying this literally every single time I'm talking live, that he is a corner outfielder. I love Nimmo, on base machine, no doubt, best smile in baseball outside of his teammate in Lindor. But realistically, he's average at best, and I think we can agree that's putting it lightly at times with him at center. For a team that's trying to go all in, you need to prioritize defense.
I think he's a liability, honestly.
Exactly. The Dodgers didn't get to where they got with just their bats. They had stellar defense as well. So it goes both ways. Like Mookie Betts, for example, he's a great bat, but he is just as good defensively. So
that's why Francisco Lindor, that trade is so good, because it's not like we just got a good bat. We got, if not one of the best defensive shortstops in MLB, and that's a premier defensive position, that shortstop. So I feel like we really need to go defensive centric in order to really take the next step, because we're going to go up against, in the playoffs, say we do go all the way, we're going up against really good offensive teams, and we need to have good defenders out there to make some plays late in games to save runs for our pitching staff.
I couldn't have said it better, buddy. I really couldn't. But here, shout out to Joe, my man, for the dono. Thank you so much, Joe. Hype in the chat for Joe, as always. Just so you know, Richie, Joe is the kind gentleman who sent me that jersey that I showed you earlier. That is the man. He's awesome.
That is awesome. Joe, you are awesome.
Thank you so much.
He showed me that jersey. Joe. I was like, wow.
I know.
It was something special.
It's ridiculous. I'm still jaw dropped by it. But Joe says, imagine putting the bats back in the hand of these sub 200 pitchers who haven't hit in 2 years. I don't know how they do that. Yeah, I know that exactly, Joe. I think when you look at let me put it this way. I think when you look at the Mets and in regards to their batters here. Oh wait, I actually think I might have misread that here. Wait, let's read it off again. Imagine putting the bats back in the hand of these sub 200 average pitchers who, oh, okay, I understand, because of the DH. I understand now. I got thrown off for a second. Saying that, like, because of the fact if you have pitchers back and batting in 2 years. Yeah. I know, it's not a great look. It really isn't. And that was an initial argument for a while, that if you have the DH in the NL, one of the always the same arguments, and I know it doesn't happen a lot, but is that you're putting a pitcher at risk of getting hurt, either getting hit by a ball or, hurt from a swing. Again, it doesn't happen often. But regardless, there's clearly a difference when you can have Dom Smith, or let's just take, for example, guys in the AL. And this is, I'm not trying to go on a rant here, but I'm going to rant just a little bit, Richie. Bear with me. When you have a DH in one league in the AL, it prolongs so many players' careers. Nelson Cruz, he's 43 years old, still hitting 40-plus bombs a year. He would not be in the league if there was not a DH. Same thing when you look at Mike Napoli, just another guy that popped off the top of my head. When you look at Big Papi, all these guys would have retired years prior if they didn't have a DH, because they simply couldn't play the field, but they can continue to work with the bat. That should be level-headed. Now that we had a taste of it, I want the whole damn thing. I want the whole meal. Don't give me just a little toy. I need it now, because it's going to affect the Mets greatly. We've seen this, and we need to continue to see it.
Facts, man. I couldn't agree more, for sure.
All right, sweet. So now getting on past the DH, let's talk about a topic that I have not touched on. I've touched on it plenty here on the channel live streams, but I'd like to expand on it further. That being in the pending UFAs, because if we look at the Mets, one of the biggest issues that a lot of Mets fans, including myself at times, were, okay, what are the Mets going to do when you have Thor, when you have Lindor, still at the time of recording this does not have an extension, Conforto without extension, Stroman only on a one-year deal still. So before I even deep dive that, because I've done that plenty here on the channel, what are your initial thoughts on the Mets and their top guys that are going to be free agents a year from now? Who do you think will be extended? When do you think will be extended, just as a hypothetical, and everything in between? Let me hear it.
Well, what I would do, I think the Mets need to prioritize signing both Francisco Lindor and Michael Conforto before the season. Extending them, rather. They need to lock those two guys up, because one, Michael Conforto is that homegrown talent that we built through the farm system ourselves, and Sandy Alderson drafted him. And they talked about in the press conference that we want to have a routine in this organization where we draft the player, we develop the player, we bring them up into our team, and then we extend them, and he's our homegrown guy that we can hold on to. Michael Conforto is that guy. I don't think his extension is going to be too crazy expensive either. So I feel like you need to talk to Michael Conforto's agent. I feel like that should be priority number two behind Francisco Lindor.
Scott Boras is his agent, unfortunately. That is the issue here. I will just say that.
Okay, that's true. But, man, I really think that Francisco Lindor should be number one, because we traded away, a decent amount, not anything. When we thought, like, hypothetically, what do we need to give up for Francisco Lindor before it happened? I guarantee everybody would say way more than what we actually gave up. So that should be number one priority. Give Francisco Lindor the money he deserves. We gave him a ridiculous deal this year already. So let's Give him that annual deal, make him comfortable, let him be the future of the New York Mets, let him be the face of the franchise. His personality is his energy, his enthusiasm, everything about Francisco Lindor just screams a franchise player. So that should be the number one priority. Do not even think about the opportunity of him hitting the open market, because if that is the case, that is a complete mistake. Do I have confidence in the Mets to get a deal done with Lindor? 100%. I do feel like it's going to happen. I told Tyler actually that I love his Francisco Lindor jersey behind him on his wall.
Thank you.
And I told him, like, listen, when the Mets traded for him, I was about to buy a jersey, but I told myself I'm not going to buy his jersey until the extension is signed, because I'm not going to buy it and then get depressed. I think it's going to happen. I don't want to get everybody worried, but I think it's going to happen. But that should definitely be number one priority. Conforto, number two. Number 3 and 4 is the Syndergaard Stroman. Those two are such big wild cards. We haven't seen them play in a long time. Syndergaard coming off, Tommy John surgery, so they should not touch a Thor extension until we see what's going on with him this year. Stroman, he took off the year last year, and his limited time we saw him on the Mets, he hasn't been as impressive, to be honest. He has all the tools, the mental ability, the energy, everything you want in a pitcher, and I feel like he wants to be here with the Mets. He loves that we got Lindor. He's very vocal on Twitter. He's very spiritual guy. He loves self-help. And I feel like Stroman is a perfect guy to have in the clubhouse in terms of chemistry and keeping everybody together. So I would love to keep Marcus Stroman long-term, but I don't think they're going to touch an extension with Stroman before the season. I feel like they need to focus their money on Conforto and Lindor to start the season. When opening day happens, I'm hoping that Conforto and Lindor are locked up long-term.
Yeah, I do too, and all great points as well. And it's nice to see us pretty much clicking on everything here for the most part. And going to Conforto, though, it's interesting because, again, Boris is going to probably be the biggest X factor here. He has a strong tendency, easy past of making sure that his clients drag it out in the free agency. So I'm personally under the belief I don't want this to be the case, but I think that it will not be a surprise whatsoever to see the Mets not extend Conforto until basically the end of the season. They need to lock up Lindor. They need to do it before the season starts. We know this. And trust me, Conforto's my favorite Met. There's nothing that I want more than to see him get locked up first. Absolutely. But realistically, when you look at the circumstances, it wouldn't be surprising to me, especially when they still have plenty that they're trying to do with the offseason. We literally have spring training, closing in within the next... isn't it in the next month? It's not far off
weeks.
At all. So yeah,
That's
it's like not just less than
2 or 3
it's
weeks.
just around like 2-3 weeks away. So again, a lot is going to happen during that time. Stuff might even happen as we start spring training too, because I know that this has been an unprecedented offseason and the market has definitely been different for a lot of these players out there, both in free agency and in the trade market that are currently being toyed with by their teams. But Conforto needs to get locked up. I'm firmly under the belief the Mets will lock him up. It's just a matter of when. Lindor, I do really believe Lindor will be locked up within the next month. Lindor seems like a very strong possibility to be done, especially before the season. That's the last thing that he wants to deal with, and I would be very surprised if Lindor wasn't willing to try to get locked up right away with the Mets. He wanted to get locked up really bad with Cleveland, as we know, and he was willing to do it with Cleveland, but they just simply couldn't hit the money. And it has to be at least $300 million, as we know. Lindor is deserving of a shit ton, and don't get me wrong.
I'm okay with that.
No one is really worth that money, but when you're weighing the market, he is definitely worth the cost. If it takes a decade and $300 million plus, you do it. That's what you do to lock in one of the best players, one of the best shortstops in all the game, and just such a balanced guy. So I would much prefer Lindor to be number one, Conforto 2, and then Thor's an interesting factor here because I love Syndergaard. He's a guy that has had inconsistencies in his career, really popped off early with the Mets, especially in 2015, 2016. Things were looking great. He dealt with some injuries because he's really pumping iron in the offseason, so he figured he needs to focus more so on other parts of his body, not just being really all with looking like a giant, looking like the stereotypical Thor, right? But in doing so, we've seen a little bit of a different trend with Thor from the start of his career. When he first came in, he was one of the hardest throwing pitchers, if not the hardest throwing starting pitcher in all of the MLB. His slider at 94 miles per hour simply wasn't fair. It was ridiculous. But again, that is going back to 2015, 2016. Here we are roughly 5 years later. The game has changed. The players have sped up. We have seen constantly better players each and every year hit the league that are able to keep up with these type of high mile per hour stuff. So that's why spin rate has been a huge thing for pitchers as well. So Thor, I really hope he bounces back from Tommy John surgery and does fantastic. I really do believe he will. but he is a guy that does need to prove his worth to an extent to make sure that he stays long-term with the Mets, because he has uncertainty. Stroman has uncertainty, as we know. I don't think Stroman would have been with the Mets right now if Steve Cohen wasn't an owner. That kind of seemed like obvious because he opted out for the season because of COVID. Say what you will, I have my personal beliefs. I don't necessarily think it was all strictly because of the pandemic. I also think he was trying to make sure his stock was good for the market, knowing he would be a free agent. It all went in hand, and again, that's just my personal belief, though I could be completely wrong here. But Stroman, I really love the guy too. I think he has a great personality. I really love his delivery, especially because he can manipulate his delivery depending on the type of hitter that he's going up against. If they choke out, like stuff like that, he can literally change his leg kick like mid without being a balk or anything. He's just so entertaining. I love the type of energy he brings in Queens for the Mets, being from Long Island as well, New York as well at least. So yeah, I do think that all of them will probably get locked up. But Conforto is a guy that I can't tell you if it's going to be before or after the season because of Scott Boras.
Oh man, you make me nervous. Just sign Conforto, man.
I know.
I'll just never forget the moment we all fell in love with Conforto, and everybody knows what I'm going to say. The 2 home runs as a rookie in the World Series. Are you kidding me?
I know.
I just remember watching that like, that is my guy. Like, that's my Italian, brother right there. Michael Conforto. Let's go.
He's a beast.
And it's just like, I always thought that is my new David Wright, because David Wright, for everyone that's the similar age as you and I, we all grew up idolizing David Wright, right? So when Michael Conforto came up and I'm a little older, I'm like, come on, Michael Conforto, this could be the guy. And he was struggling a little bit. There were some times where he, wasn't doing the things that we wanted to. He was batting so late in the lineup, which I always hated. But then he broke out this year, and he showed the one thing that was concerned, which was consistency. And he was consistently the best bat in the lineup last year. So that should be number one behind, I keep forgetting about Lindor, but I'm a little worried about it, man. I really am. But at the same time, we have to realize that we're dealing with Steve Cohen's money. This is not the traditional way. We still low-key have a mindset of the Wilpons where we cannot sign everybody. And can we just appreciate one thing real quick that's off topic but not off topic at the same time?
Go for it.
We are paying Jacob deGrom like nothing that he deserves. Like I should tell Steve Cohen, just restructure that contract for deGrom, give him an extra $10 million because he deserves it. This guy is out of control. Every time I watch him pitch, it's just a thing of beauty. We're watching greatness, and I don't know how they did that. But the one thing I will say, which is why I brought it up, is deGrom obviously took less money to stay with the Mets because he felt loyal. He wants to be a Met, and he understood at the time the Mets ownership couldn't afford anything more. I feel like Syndergaard has a similar mindset with the Mets where he loves this organization. He feels at home. He's very vocal on Twitter about the Mets. I feel like he's a Met at heart, and we traded for him, and he had, I feel like he would rather take less money to become the future of the Mets than move on. It's just a prediction. I could be totally wrong, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right to an extent. I do, because Thor's had his controversies, his issues with the Mets in the past, really because of the previous regime. That's the easiest way to put it. So to have Steve Cohen in here, it's like, I'm sure to him, he was like, oh my God, finally, I love this organization. Can I just be treated right? Can the team actually have some proper treatment here? Because things have just been so incompetent for so long. We should not be in the back pages of, the New York Post every week for a negative thing anymore. It needs to be positive. So I truly do believe that Syndergaard would be willing to take somewhat of a hometown discount, if you will, like deGrom. Do I think he'll need to? No. Maybe on an additional 1-year deal, and then you go for a bigger payday to hopefully that he has a dominant 2022 season. But Thor is great. I cannot say enough good things about him. His personality is electric too. He's just Thor is great because he's awkward, but in a funny way. He's purposely awkward. There's just, I don't know, everything about his personality I really do enjoy plenty. And then deGrom, deGrom is a great topic to bring up more, and I will actually segue that a little bit with Bauer here, because there are a lot of Mets fans, and I was for a while, that's okay, I'm not against Bauer, but he cannot be making more than deGrom, at least in the short term, AAV.
Yeah.
And my counter to that is, yes, I don't believe he's deserving of getting more than deGrom, but to suggest that deGrom is going to be upset by that is the most foolish thing I could think of. deGrom did not sign the contract with the Mets to be the highest paid player in baseball, let alone pitcher. If he did, he probably wouldn't be with the Mets right now because he would have hit the market. It doesn't make sense at all when you view things that way. deGrom wants to stay with the Mets, and all he wants to do at this point in his career, being a back-to-back Cy Young Award winner that very well could have won his 3rd straight, but no Trevor Bauer beats him for it, go figure, that he wants to win now. So if you bring Trevor Bauer in, all that does is help your chances of winning right now. I'm sure DeGrom would be all in favor for it. I'm sure this entire roster would too. So again, I know Trevor Bauer, he would be an overpay, but that's how free agency works, guys. It doesn't matter what sport it is. When you have a top guy you're going after, one of, if not the biggest name in free agency, you will have to be foolish to suggest that you're going to land that player without there being some type of overpay. That's always what you do in each and every sport.
Yeah, man, I agree. And I just want to touch up on something. I see that people in the chat are saying that DeGrom is getting paid a lot of money. He is getting paid a lot of money. My point was he's potentially the greatest of all time, the greatest pitcher of this generation.
He's not even making Garrett Cole money is the point.
Exactly. Garrett Cole got ridiculous money. DeGrom's getting paid a hefty price this year. Obviously, he's not getting cheap. He's one of the highest paid pitchers in the MLB. But if you compare Garrett Cole to DeGrom's contract, the contract that Trevor Bauer is going to get, my point was DeGrom deserves to be the highest paid pitcher in baseball by a large margin just because how great he was. Or how great he is. Excuse me.
And that's completely fair. Yeah, exactly. And to show that he isn't is telling that he is very much a team player. He's been and he will continue to be. And that's what, DeGrom is a silent warrior, goes about his business. He doesn't talk much. He's just ridiculous on the mound each and every fifth day. So,
and I knew that too. This jersey I have right behind me, there's a World Series patch on it. I bought it right like that season. And at the time, we didn't know who the ace of the future was. I feel like Syndergaard, low-key, was getting a little more hype because he was that rookie upcoming guy, Thor, and then DeGrom still had the hair. And I'm like, I was debating. I'm like, who do I want? Do I want a Harvey jersey, a DeGrom jersey, Syndergaard? I'm like, Jacob DeGrom's the future of the Mets. And obviously, a lot of people knew that. I'm not the only one. But I bought it, and little did I know, at the time, no one expected him to become one of the greatest pitchers of all time. So I'm happy I got that jersey.
It's so funny you say that because my first year, let me put it this way. I've been a Mets fan my whole life, but I did not start following baseball religiously actually until the 2015 season, but it was not a bandwagon ride. And here's why. It started out.
I have a very similar story.
Okay. It started out because I was, I'm 20 right now. So I was around like 15 at the time or going to be 15. And I believe it was early to mid July, my cousin told me, he was like, and he was huge with the Mets at the time. He's still a big Mets fan because he lives on the island. And he was like, Tyler, you need to watch this series with me this weekend because we were hanging out. I was like, okay, why? He's like, because if the Mets win this series against the Nationals, then they are first in the division for like the first time. I was at that game. Oh, you were? Oh my God. Yeah. So first time in a while, I was like, okay, word, we'll watch it. And this is me not really knowing much about the team at that point. So I watch the games, I see it happen, and I just fall in love instantly. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Like, it kind of felt like I was hopping on a bandwagon, even though I didn't realize what the hell I was getting myself into as a Mets fan. So then Cespedes gets acquired. We had that run. Everything was great. I know what happened. Obviously, the Royals were the better team. It wasn't surprising to me to see that happen. It is what it is. That's in the past, though. But I will just say, I know, you got to weep a little bit. It's okay. The fact that they even got there because of Daniel Murphy, and shout out to Daniel Murphy for retiring today. My man, he crushed me with the Nationals. Literally, I went to so many games at City with him just dominating us after the fact. It was so like, this is murdering me. But I wish him nothing but the best in retirement. My friend, I'm sure he's doing well back in Jacksonville because I'm pretty sure that's where he's originally from. But I think when you look at the Mets now, since then, right around that time, that Christmas, or it was the year before, I got a jersey from my parents, and it was DeGrom, and my brother got Syndergaard. I was a little upset at first, because as I was first following the Mets, Thor, like, just that whole narrative was finally starting, and I was like, oh, Thor, like, I want him so bad. And DeGrom, I didn't have as much knowledge about, but then as the season went on, I was like, oh, okay, DeGrom's, like, actually, like, low-key a beast, all right. So then the upcoming season, he cuts his hair, and now I'm like, why did DeGrom cut his hair? And he says that he cut his hair specifically because it should add a tick or two onto his fastball. That is what the numbers indicate. That is the reasoning why DeGrom supposedly cut his hair. So it's like, okay, what does DeGrom do? He wins the Cy Young. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I have the right jersey. So that's my first Mets jersey as well. That's a great story.
Yeah, man, I have such a similar story. It's pretty crazy. I'm 22 years old. Mm-hmm. That 2006 Mets season when we went to the NLCS Game 7, I was 8 years old. And I'll never forget, that was like the first year I got into the Mets because I'm 8 years old and my whole family's Mets fans. And my parents had a party during that Game 7 game. And I remember when we lost that game, Carlos Beltran struck out. I went upstairs hysterically crying. And I broke a chair. And I'm 8 years old, going to bed, just depressed. And then 2007 comes around. You guys know what happened. And then everything started going downhill for the Mets. Yeah. And then that's when the Jets went to back-to-back AFC championships. So all of a sudden I'm a huge Jets fan because I'm really young, and I like the Jets before him, and then I'm so into the Jets. And then Carmelo Anthony comes to the Knicks around 2012, and I'm a huge Knicks fan. So then between what I'm trying to say is I kind of lost not my passion, but I stopped watching the Mets from like 2009 to 2014. Like I understood what was going on. I was watching the games here and there, but I wasn't just super into it like I am now. And then I didn't even watch them in 2014. This is really weird how this happened. I don't know how I predicted this, but 2015 comes around. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy MLB The Show. And it was that year. And I bought MLB The Show right before the season kicks off. And I'm like, all right, I'm a Mets fan at heart. I love them growing up. I've been following them here and there. And I start playing with the Mets. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch the Mets this year. You know what? I'm just going to watch the Mets. I educate myself all over again. I'm like, all right, who's on this Mets team? And I educate myself all over again. And then little than I know, they made the World Series that year. It's like crazy how that happened. I always think about it. I'm like, wow, what made me just get back into the Mets in 2015 before they made the World Series? It's like, and it's not even like I started watching them midway through the year. Opening day, I watched them and watched almost every single game throughout the year. It's just, isn't that a crazy concept that happened?
I know. Yeah, it is funny. We have fairly similar stories there too. I love it. But yeah, no, it's pretty nice at least when you look at things nowadays, because like we have not dealt with the hardships like the OGs. Plenty of us in the chat, as I can see here, that have been Mets fans throughout the entire Will Ponds era as we know and beforehand. But what we can say, and that we can rationally say now, is that that era, that time is done. I think we can all agree we were all probably on the positive side of that end. And now with Conan and everyone else in, we have no clue for what is about to happen. We have a good idea as to why we should be really excited, but seriously, when these guys finally get on the field, it's going to be tremendous. And I simply can only imagine what is going to happen with the remainder of this offseason. So as we kind of segue more into just now miscellaneous thoughts here about the Mets and their offseason, what is the move you would like to see the Mets do next? Or what is the move you think the Mets will do next, in your personal opinion?
I think it has to be Trevor Bauer, to be honest. We'll see. I feel like Trevor Bauer is a guy that the Mets really, if they wanted to win this year and the year after that, that's what they're going to do. I feel like they were linked to Trevor Bauer for so long, even before the offseason. And I feel like it's between them and the Dodgers. And I feel like it would be smart for them to bring him in because our starting rotation is ridiculous. And it's crazy because, like we mentioned earlier on the stream, he's not a huge need. Our starting pitching rotation is not terrible right now on paper.
No, not at all.
If we bring him in, it takes us to the next level.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If the question is, who do we want to go in free agency? That. And I also would mention, me personally, I was never high on George Springer. A lot of Mets fans wanted George Springer. I didn't want him just because that means Conforto is out the door. It's either we sign George Springer for the long term, and he's also an aging guy that's in the center field, and he's not a defensive guy. He's more of a corner outfielder in the future. So I'm really happy we did not get Springer. And now that we didn't get Springer, let's go out there and get Trevor Bauer. So that's really where I feel like we should do. And I just want to touch up on something real quick because I see some people in the chat saying, call me a fake Mets fan because no, I didn't stop watching the Mets. My point was during the 2010, all that time, I was just so into the Jets and the Knicks, and I was watching the Mets here and there. I just wasn't fully indulged in it because, as we know, they were terrible, and I was watching them. I knew everything that was going on with the Mets, but I wasn't just religiously watching every single game like I was when I was a kid. And then you guys heard the story, but I want to touch up on that. But yeah, I think Trevor Bauer is my answer, and I'm happy that we didn't get George Springer, which is probably unpopular opinion, but I feel like you agree, right?
Yeah, no, I do too. I mean, look, I was very much a Springer stan just because of the Mets need at center field for an upgrade over Nimmo, and Springer is that at this point in time. Let's be real. He's a guy that in that lineup would have been tremendous. The Mets would have had so many leadoff hitter options between him, Lindor, McNeil, Nimmo, and, like the list goes on and on. But I will say this. The Mets did not land Springer. And again, I'll say this one more time. They did not land him, not because of the fact that they couldn't afford him, but because they didn't believe he was worthy of $150 million over a 6-year span. The Mets did not want to go past 4 years. That's what all the reports indicated. So because of that reason, it seems like that they are best suited in a situation now where not getting Springer is perfectly fine, because Springer at the age of 31 currently, we're now in a situation that over 2 more years, he very well could be getting closer to being a DH or at least a corner outfield for sure. And we're getting paid that amount of money. That does have some implications, I should say, on how you address things both short-term and long-term. that doesn't help you with long-term success. Getting Trevor Bauer for tops a 3 or maybe a 4-year deal with opt-outs after each season is a closer bet of having both short-term and long-term success when you have that option to still, be out of the lineup, if you will, after the upcoming season for Bauer's case, if he wants to opt out. Having that ability, I think will be huge for the Mets in this situation. And I do believe the Mets do have a stronger chance than ever. I'm just not going to jinx the Bauer thing because I really do want it to happen, honestly. But again, I think that regardless if they get Bauer or not, and I always say this, they will, in fact, make more stuff happen for the Mets this offseason. I think that third base will be addressed, and I think that very well could be a sleeper pick where maybe people don't know what is bound to come at third base. Is it still going to be Chris Bryant? Is that still an option? Is Eugenio Suarez the more realistic option there? Is it maybe a different avenue? Only time will tell, but they're going to address all these holes in the lineup. I feel unbelievably confident in that, and I know that there are a lot of people that are still a little worrisome about it, but I'm under the belief that they're going to do just that. And by the time the offseason is over, we're going to be all smiles, like we already are to an extent, like Mr. Smile himself.
Mr. Smile himself. Extend that man, please. I'm sick of thinking about it. Please.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But man.
He'll be extended.
I know. My question for you is, you brought it up, but if we don't land Bauer, where do we go? Where do we put the money? Do we trade for Suarez, like you said? So if you were the Mets, or at least what do you predict the Mets to do if we don't land Bauer? Because now we had, Springer was the guy, Bauer was the guy, but now Springer signed, and now it's down to the Dodgers and the Mets, bearing any other third party we don't know about. If Bauer does sign with the Dodgers, what do you think the Mets will do?
I think if the Mets do not land Bauer, they are going to very well go down a trade package route. I'm not betting the farm that's going to be the Reds' proposal, that being in Suarez and Sonny Gray, but that feels a lot more likely as long as they can afford to give up the assets, because Gray and Suarez are both on team-friendly contracts, so that deal would not come cheap. It's not going to be a salary dump. The Mets are not going to be able to say, dump the Familia contract right away, for instance. The Reds are trying to shed salary. They just came off of finally having a playoff appearance in forever, and now they're going to go back into basically doing a retool/rebuild because they can't afford their guys. That just, unfortunately, it happens with smaller market clubs, and the Reds are going to be culprits to that again. So Sonny Gray and Suarez makes literally too much sense at this point for the Mets if they don't land Bauer. You could look at other options possibly. Maybe the Mets consider not going for another big piece in the rotation. They just like things how they are. Because again, the rotation as it is still really, really strong. You're looking at, yes, you have DeGrom, but then you have Carrasco, Stroman, Peterson. Then there's that suspect at the 5th spot. So then maybe you consider going for a Taijuan Walker, if you will, or another type of depth move to really add that final piece in the rotation. Lucchesi is going to compete for a spot, but I see him being more of a platoon, possibly starting the bullpen for the Mets. That's the Padre they just trade for over the past couple weeks in the Musgrove deal in that 3-parter. But I do think that when you see the options for the Mets here, they are going to make moves. Third base, I really do think is going to get covered. And I'm just really excited because I do think it's going to happen very sneaky. I don't think we're going to know for certain what happens when the Mets make another big deal, but I do feel confident that they will make a big deal in regards to the trade market.
Yeah, man, they're so creative, these guys, and they somehow keep everything under the rug, like the Lindor trade. And like we mentioned over and over again in the stream, I do feel like there's something under the works. They have backup plans. They have a set contract offer to Trevor Bauer. We don't know the exact offer. There's a lot of speculations whether it's this or that. Mm-hmm. But like we mentioned earlier, they're not going to be in a bidding war with Bauer, which I really like. I don't want them to be in a bidding war and overpay for him, even though we have such, a guy with so much money to his name where it doesn't really matter, but it's his pocket. We want to invest money smartly. We don't want to be overjoyous, like, oh my God, we have an owner that is worth $13 billion. Let's sign every single person and set ourselves up for, no future. So like you said, I feel like if we can extend Lindor, extend Conforto, sign Bauer before the offseason ends, I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly. I would be ecstatic too. And just take into account one more thing with Bauer. I'm not trying to be a dead horse here, but it just would be picture perfect. And I don't know if you've done any, investigative work like I have and a lot of other fellow Mets fans have, but we've seen Bauer. He's touched on the Mets plenty through his YouTube channels. His last YouTube video clearly has Citi Field in the background that he has hidden, where he has it photoshopped where you can't see the signs. But if you look in, it's literally Citi Field. I don't know if you check that out, so make sure you do that. But he's done that with other arenas. But one thing, Bauer has done these videos all offseason toying with fans of opposing teams as to, should I land with the Angels? Should I land with the Padres? Should I land with, let's see here, the Angels, Padres, Dodgers? He didn't do one with the Mets. He even did one with the White Sox. Why didn't he do one with the Mets is my question. Is it maybe because the Mets are the top dog all along? That's something that I've been kind of thinking as a hypothetical too. Again, it's all just speculation. I'm just trying to connect the dots like any other normal conspiracy theorist. But what's your thoughts on that?
No, yeah. I mean, all these conspiracy theories and researching all this, I'm very familiar with. For those of you guys that are football fans and understand what's going on right now, Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston, and every Jets fan is doing research. How does Deshaun link to the New York? And his marketing agents from New York. It's the same thing with Trevor Bauer with the Mets. I love it. All fans are just so immersed in this. We want to make sure that we can connect all the dots, and it's all going to happen. Trevor Bauer's going to be a Met. Deshaun Watson's going to be a Jet. You know, it's like everyone's on the same page, all these conspiracy theories. I love it. But I've watched all the Trevor Bauer YouTube videos about him talking about the Mets, and every time I'm watching it, I'm like, is this guy just like messing with us? Because
he's a little bit of a troll. He is to an extent. There's no denying that.
I know. It's like, how can you not be a Met? You're wearing a Mets hat. You're just hyping up Steve Cohen. You're hyping up the entire fan base. You're hyping up everything. Like, it's just like, I don't know. I'm curious to see if he does become a New York Met, what's his channel going to be like? I feel like that'd be really fun.
Oh my God. Can you imagine like Alonso, McNeil, Trevor May, just all like Stroman too? Like so many personalities. The Mets have so many personalities in this clubhouse as it is. You're literally bringing in the unofficial president of the players union, like out of the entire MLB, that being in Trevor Bauer into this team. It would be nuts. You know, the on and off field access we would have as Mets fans or witness through his streams, through his YouTube and everything, because he does so much as it is between showing you inside locker room access, you know, what it's like to be an everyday player, talking with fellow players, doing all these interviews and shit, and just like ranting as soon as the game's done. Like you see him going down like the flight of stairs as he's leaving the game, literally rants. He's pissed the hell off because of the game got shortened because of a rain delay or something. Like no one else does that. And I get it, you love him or hate him for these types of things. Trevor Bauer is not the most perfect person in the world. Everyone has their issues in life. No one's going to be perfect. You either like him or you don't. I've never had an issue with Trevor Bauer personally. I don't condone everything that he's done in his life, but I would condone him coming to the New York Mets.
Yeah, man. I think that we need to get him here. We have not had the big fish signing that we expected this offseason. I think Francisco Lindor is the big fish signing that we were expecting, but that wasn't a signing. It was a trade. So are we going to go out there and get that big ticket signing that we've been waiting for? And like I said, the Lindor trade, it's going to turn into a signing eventually when he signs that $300 million contract that he deserves. But we haven't had that guy. We haven't signed Springer. We haven't signed anybody. So Trevor Bauer deserves his money. I'm hoping to get creative with the deal. I hope there's opt-outs so we can say he doesn't pitch well, because he's been a very up and down type of pitcher. He was lights out in 2020 in a pandemic year, a shortened season. We don't know. Yep. But I feel like his personality will go a long way with the Mets. I feel like there's a lot of things that's positive around Trevor Bauer, and I would love for him to be a New York Met, but only time will tell. And I feel like he's holding out a little too long for my liking.
Oh yeah, I think that's putting it lightly.
Make up your mind.
You can't blame the guy though. I think anyone that would be surprised at this point is just like, you know, biggest payday of the man's career. He's never going to have this type of leverage. You know, things could have worked out better for him in the shortened season. And for sure, also take one more factor into consideration. I was talking about this last night, and again, this is really going to suck if Bauer doesn't land with the Mets because of just how much we're hyping it up. But imagine him against Garrett Cole in the Subway Series matchup. Just because that rivalry is huge. I don't know if you know the whole backing, but they do not like each other. Bauer and Cole were teammates during their time in college, and Garrett Cole reportedly threw Bauer and has stated why he dislikes him so much is that Cole said he's not going to get anywhere as a player. He literally shit-talked the hell out of him during his time in college, supposedly. Bauer was literally, if you watch Bauer on any single interview, kind of the reason why he's a little cocky in the way he is now is because of the fact that he wants to prove his doubters wrong. He was constantly made fun of and didn't have friends growing up in high school, even becoming a star athlete and being Rookie of the Year in the NCAA for UCLA. Like, this guy simply, people didn't think he was ever going to be good enough. So that's been a driving force. He's called out Garrett Cole with his cheating during his time with the Astros as well, like big time in regards to to the spin rate, and that's probably a big part of the reason why why Bauer spin rate has been going up now, because he's like, all right, fuck it. If everyone else is going to be doing this, if like 70% of this league, all right, I'm going to do it too, and basically show you that Garrett Cole's not worth his contract. I'm a better pitcher than he is, so that's why I'm trying to get upwards, if not the same pay as Garrett Cole or more, because he really feels that he can be better than him, and I love that driving force. Like, just imagine what that rivalry would be like on full display here in the Big Apple, like possibly even a World Series matchup one day. Would be nothing better. I think that's a better duo than DeGrom and Cole, honestly, because DeGrom is the better pitcher than Cole. Anyone who says he isn't is seriously just a Yankees fan.
Yeah, and I was actually going to mention DeGrom when you're mentioning the Subway Series matchup. I'm like, yeah, it's funny that it would be Cole versus Bauer, and Bauer's not our best pitcher.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I don't know, man. I honestly, to be honest, did not know about that rivalry between Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer. That's very interesting. I knew they go back a long way, but I didn't know the deep roots of it. So thank you for letting me know. And that's making me want Trevor Bauer even more, because I hate the Yankees with a passion. Everyone is like, why do you hate the Yankees, man? New York sports. Like, are you kidding me? What kind of Mets fan likes the Yankees? I don't want to, if anybody does like the Yankees in the chat, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But growing up, I was surrounded by Yankees fans, and I was getting shitted on for being a Mets fan, and the Mets were terrible my whole life, and the Yankees were so good. So that just made me, as a kid, despise the Yankees more than any other team in the league.
Of course.
So I would love to sign Trevor Bauer now that he doesn't like Garrett Cole, and Trevor Bauer can pitch seven innings and give up 3 hits and 1 run while Garrett Cole is lit up. I'm down. Let's see it. Subway Series, I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be tremendous, truly. It just brings so much more fire this rivalry. And look, I've interacted with plenty of very kind Yankees fans in the chat and stuff, so I'm not trying to, beat that, saying that, F the Yankees and all this stuff. But look, I'm not a Yankees fan. We both are not. That is clear. And between that rivalry, look, I don't live in New York currently. I'm originally from the island. I don't live there, though, so I haven't experienced that to the extent that you have throughout your life, I'm sure. I know I have family members that are Yankees fans. I have friends that are Yankees fans. I know how that is, to begin with, so I can only imagine what it is on an everyday basis as normal Mets fans deal with. So if you see what happens between the Mets and the Yankees fans, a lot of them are really worried. They're talking shit right now because they don't know what else to do. They never thought that this was going to happen, nor did Mets fans. Steve Cohen literally coming in here like freaking WWE music, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, just like pumping it. He's like, all right, we're going, all right? Because now the Mets, they have more money. Realistically, they actually have more money than the Yankees, and people don't seem to realize that. They have more Sandy Alderson, Zach Scott, they have more money than Cashman. Whether they want to believe it or not, it's a different story. But the Mets are going to be just like the Yanks each year, where they can consistently be a strong team, but they're also going to continue to build the farm. Well, I do give props to the Yanks. They have been doing really well. Look at when they flipped Chapman back in like 16 to the Cubs, and then got Gleyber Torres, and then got Chapman back a year later. Like, they're smart with their decisions. They build their farm. They're so deep. That's why they continue to have deep runs every year, even after when Giancarlo and Aaron Judge has made a paper mache the past couple years. Like, they're still able to have a strong lineup, and I think the Mets are primed to be in that spot, but then even go beyond. So that's why I love it. You love to hate the Yankees. You love that rivalry. I think that's what makes sports, baseball in particular, such a great thing, and I'm just pumped. Sign me up for Trevor Bauer. Give me some other options here, and let's just get this thing rolling. I want to see the rivalry kind of like how it was in the past, even though they always play good against each other. Let's bring back the days of obviously 2000, even though the things didn't go the Mets' way. Things were intense there and before that, and I just want to see this spark up again.
Yeah, man, and it's all love, nothing against Yankees fans in the chat. Absolutely. It's sports. It's natural to be rivals. It's going to be a healthy rivalry. And one thing I will say is, I don't know if you're familiar with Rich Eisen. He has a talk show. He's an NFL guy, but he's a diehard Jets fan, diehard Yankees fan. And on his show, the day after the Mets got Lindor, well, it was amazing. You got to watch it.
Wait, Isaac, or do you mean Eisen?
Rich Eisen.
Eisen, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know Rich. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see him rant about Lindor. I saw him rant.
It's so awesome, man. He's like, I don't like it. I can't believe it. I don't know what's going on, because like as a Yankee fan my entire life, because his brother's a Mets fan, I believe. Oh. And he went back all the way down in history. And he's like, the Yankees were always this, the Yankees were always that. The Mets were always the ones with, flipping pennies around with a cheap. And then he's like, I don't know what's going on. And the way he does it, his energy and everything about it's beautiful. And like his persona on the radio show, he's just really good at his job. And he's just like, as a diehard Yankees fan, seeing the Mets rise from the ground, the way he's just like, I don't like this. And you could see the worry in his eyes. He's like, I don't know what's happening. I never thought in a million years this was going to be the case. And I just found that funny. You got to watch it.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll definitely check that out. The last thing I actually saw of him on YouTube was his rant about the Jets when they won their first game this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw his
rant.
Yeah,
you should see my reaction.
Oh yeah, no, I'll have to check it out. But look, it you know, that's all.
I was live. I was live during that. Like, I don't know what I want to think.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a tough feeling when you're committed to your team. You know, like basically, all right, like we're tanking this year. We got to go for a top pick. And even when you do, like the Knicks, obviously, you still can't even get a damn top pick. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, don't even bring it up.
I know. But we're getting on to a tangent at this point. I think as we are kind of, you know, wrapping things up here, is there anything else that you would like to add before maybe we answer, I guess, to some people in the chat for maybe 5 or 10 minutes? I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, let's open up a Mets Q&A. Don't really have too much other things to say. Would love to get into the chat. Also want to say thank you guys so much. And thank you to you, Tyler, for letting me be on the show. I'm really excited to kick off this weekly stream. This is going to be on my channel next week, so make sure you check out Mets Media. I haven't been posting a lot on Mets Media in the past couple of weeks because as some of you guys, I noticed in the chat, you guys are subscribers to me on my other YouTube channels on Jets Media and Knicks Media. I've been very consumed with what's going on in the Jets offseason, the new head coach, and the Knicks because they're currently in the season. So I haven't had a lot of time for my Mets Media channel, but I'm going to be giving you guys a lot of Mets content. So make sure you check it out. I'm really excited for this collaboration with Tyler and I because I feel like we have very similar mindsets with the Mets, and I'm excited to answer you guys' questions. This is the beginning of something great. Let's do it.
Yeah, no, thank you again, Richie. This has been a lot of fun. I'm really excited for the future too. As always, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you all so much in the chat here below, especially coming from Richie's channels. I appreciate you guys being here. Please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, guys. Help us get to 200 likes by the end of the stream. Really mean a lot. But now
smash that like button.
Yeah, and now we're gonna answer some questions, guys, probably for 5 or 10 minutes before we let you all go. So if you guys do have any questions, please by all means ask them away. What is the most memorable Mets moment you've each been present for? I'll let you go first, Richie.
Present for meaning at the game or
just
at the
game
being present? Oh, at the game. That's definitely the game the series, the Washington versus Mets game, 2015, when that was the series that will dictate the division, and it was Syndergaard on the mound, and they had 3 home runs in the same inning. Lucas Duda. It was ridiculous. I was there 10 rows from the field, and that was like Cespedes' first hit as a Met. He had a base hit to left field. I remember it. It was right when we got Cespedes, and that was the series. It was Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, and Syndergaard was on the mound. And I don't know if you guys know which game I'm talking about, but I'm assuming you guys do because that was the pivotal point of the Mets season in 2015 that catapulted us to the division title and the World Series. So that was definitely my craziest memory, being at a game. And my game watching television was definitely 2006 when Eddie Chavez completely had that ridiculous robbing a home run. I remember watching it. I don't know who hit it, but I was 8 years old and I saw it. I'm like, that's a home run. I'm like, no. And then like I stopped looking, and then my dad's like, he caught it. And I'm like, what? And then that was just that's a memory that I always have in my brain. So that's my memory of watching the Mets the most. And then being at the game definitely against the Nationals in 2015.
Oh yeah, no, I can only imagine. It's funny you say Nats because I agree. I've been to a good amount of Mets games now. I honestly go to more Mets games than any other sport because one, they're cheaper for the most part, at least because when I go to them in Philly, they're pretty good. And then also I can go to some Mets games each year, and that's gonna change a lot because of this channel. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I gotta change my answer because I totally forgot I went to the World Series. I was at the one game we won, the World Series, guys. Why did I not even get to my head? I was at game 3.
Just leave, Richie. Just leave. Come on.
Yeah, what? I was at game 3 of the World Series, the only game that we won. The Noah Syndergaard on the mound. I witnessed David Wright hit a home run, and I was there.
You were lucky enough to be at the one game where they won. That's crazy.
Exactly. And I'll never forget the moment that David Wright hit that home run in Citi Field. It was just like, oh my gosh. Mets fans were literally like punching each other of excitement. I remember because it's a funny story. I was up top with my parents at like the top row, and my uncle somehow got tickets by himself 10 rows from the field.
Wow.
And my uncle told me, he's like, in the 7th inning to 9th inning, I'll let you have my seat and you can sit 10 rows from the
Oh,
field.
sweet.
And I'm like, all right. So 7th inning came around. I went down. We swapped tickets, and I'm sitting there alone as a 17-year-old, and I'm next to these random people. And that was when I think Curtis Granderson went yard, and this random guy next to me picked me up. It was like we're all going crazy. Like that was definitely my pivotal moment as a Mets fan, being at the World Series and then winning.
Oh, that's all. I can't believe you forgot that though. That's funny.
I know.
Why did I feel like I knew that you went there too? That's the bizarre thing. I felt like I heard you say that before. I don't know why.
Maybe when we talked on Zoom.
Yeah, I don't know. That is
that.
literally hilarious though. But yeah, no, for me, I mean,
funny that I forgot that.
I've been to a lot of good Mets games. There's two that really stand out to me as of right now. One being actually they're both, I believe, from, if my memories are not mistaken, I think they're both from the 2019 season. The one was I saw Pete Alonso's first home run at Citi Field and JD Davis's 2 home runs first at Citi Field against the Nationals. I think that was the Mets home opener, or it was the second home game of the season. Regardless, that was awesome. The Mets, I think it was Alonso and Cano, or was it Conforto and Cano, went back-to-back home runs to win it off of Doolittle like late in the game. It was a crazy back and forth game between the two to start off the 2019 season. That was an amazing moment for me. And then also the same season, I believe, on right at the end of August, the Mets were in Philly for my birthday, because my birthday is like right at the end of August. And I went to both those games, and luckily the Mets won both games. The Mets won the first game 6-3. I think Jason Vargas was pitching for the Phillies too, and the Mets beat them in that first game, which is funny. And then the second game, the Mets won 11-5. And that was an awesome week. I could not have asked for anything better that week. I think it was a weekend too, especially for a birthday weekend. So yeah, those are probably my favorite. It's been a lot of fun. I have so much fun at Mets games. You're either absolutely pumped or you're just absolutely distraught by the end of it.
Yeah, man. Mets games there's nothing like it. Even when they're not a good team, you go there and you have a good time because the energy around Citi Field is just phenomenal. And I'm just hoping that we can get there this year because Mets fans need to be back in the stadium because they feed off of us. We're a big reason why. And Pete Alonso kept saying all over Instagram how much he misses us last year. And I really hope, man, we really need to get back in the stadium. Let's hope.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Going on to Scotty as a question here. Could you see the Mets in on Arenado or Bryant? We touched on that, but I would say Bryant between the two right now. Would you agree?
Between Bryant and Arenado, yeah, Bryant's way more realistic in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, who would you rather have, Suarez and Gray? Oh wait, I just missed the question here. Got to backtrack for a second because of the chat. Okay, I think it was, who would you have, Suarez and Gray or someone else?
Yeah, I have it right here. Who would you rather have, Suarez and Gray or Bryant and Hendricks?
Oh, okay. I'll let you start.
It's a good question, man. I think Suarez and Gray, just because Suarez, we have more control and it's not a 1-year rental and we don't have to worry about giving Chris Bryant a really big deal. I feel like Suarez and Alonso in the same lineup will be crazy. Yeah. So that's my take. What about you?
Yeah, I would say Suarez and Gray as long as the price is right in the trade package because they're just on very team-friendly contracts, and Bryant would cause a lot more question. I would love to see Bryant with the Mets, but if I was GM right now, if I was Zach Scott and I had to pick between the two, I would be in favor of Gray and Suarez if it was around the same price than Hendricks and Bryant because of knowing that Suarez won't be long-term and then Brett Beatty could be on his way up possibly. So that would definitely go into my decision-making. But again, I would be in favor of either of them. Have you guys ever watched Pat Mahomes senior pitch back in the early 2000s? I have not. I know the story, obviously, with Mahomes' dad being pitcher for the Mets, but I have not actually seen it, no. Have you, Richie?
No, I haven't seen it, but I know a lot about – I always say, because I have a lot of YouTube channels about football, and I always talk about Patrick Mahomes of why he is so good is because he has background in baseball. The way he throws reminds me of a shortstop off platform with his ridiculous arm talent. And I love that his dad played for the Mets. I love it. And I also love that Donovan Mitchell is a huge Mets fan as well.
Yep. Yes, he is. Yeah, no,
trying to get Donovan over to the Knicks.
Oh, yeah, I know. Hopefully while he's still in his prime, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Gregory, what's up, buddy? I remember you, Greg. Mets fan from Atlanta. What's up, my guy? Happy to have you here. Okay, let's see. Let's see more things here.
Someone thinks that the Mets will be 95 and 67 with the full season.
90, I think 95 is realistic if they continue to have the offseason that we believe they're going to have. I think that pushing for 100 wins is definitely a stretch. We don't even know if it's going to be a 162 game, unfortunately, because they're going to push. I think they're going to delay the season a month as of now because of the damn Cactus League. I don't know if you read up on that. It's frustrating because I really just want to see a normal season in place. But assuming there's a normal season, I would very much like to see them go between. They can go 90, 95 wins with hopefully gain Bauer or just another rotation piece and still adding to the other positions in need in this roster. I'm all for it.
Yeah, me too. Here's a good question. Favorite Mets player of all time from Mets Nation? I'll let you go first.
Okay, Elliot is always involved in these live streams. He is a regular. He has his own channel as well. A great diehard Mets fan right there. Shout out to Elliot. And I've said this plenty. It's actually funny because all time. All right, I'll just say not a roster player right now. All time. It's obviously like David Wright for me. It's David Wright, Piazza, and Gooden. Those three always just stand out to me. But outside of that, it's funny because I will always kind of say Michael Conforto because Conforto was really like my first kind of true like love. That was like, all right, what player is going to be like the guy that I ride with like throughout his entire career? And that was Conforto for me. So I know that's kind of bizarre because it's not like he's the biggest Met of all time, but with the pace he's on, as long as he stays in Met long term, he could very well go down as one of the best Mets in their history. He's on the right track.
Yeah. My favorite Met of all time might not be the popular choice, but it's just because I grew up idolizing him, and that's Jose Reyes.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. Every time I played baseball growing up as a kid in Little League, I would play shortstop. I would wear number 7. I would head first slide into second base when I didn't have to because I tried to be like Jose. He was my idol. So Jose Reyes is my favorite Met player of all time just because of my childhood nostalgic reasons. But David Wright is definitely another reason why my favorite number is 5 because of David Wright. So it's one of those two. But if you want to go back in time, probably Tom Seaver, just because my dad tells me all the stories about him, and he tells me all the stories about Tom Seaver and Joe Namath back in the day and Clyde Frazier, and I always have a connection to that time period just because I've heard so much stories about him.
Yeah, the franchise. Again, another perfect pick as well. You can't go wrong with any of them, really. I love that. All right, let's see if there's any more questions. We'll probably go for another, I guess, 5 minutes, I would say, to the 50 mark, if that's good with you, Richie.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's see here. What do you guys think of trading for Matt Chapman? I'm not against it, Joaquin, but I don't think it's happening. Chapman is the face of the franchise for the A's. I don't see them parting ways with him. I really don't. What about you?
Yeah, no, that's someone that it's just unrealistic at this point. I don't think now that we have traded for a guy like Lindor, I feel like now we're like, oh my God, okay, what are the best players out there we can trade for? We have to realize that not everybody's willing to trade. It's a very unique opportunity we had with Lindor because they didn't have the funds in order to extend him. I feel like the A's are going to make sure he is the, face of the franchise.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see more questions here. Which free agents should we target next year, says Ethan. I'm going to hold off on answering that, Ethan, because we simply don't know exactly who's all going to be big name free agents and who's not, because there are guys that are currently pending UFAs in a year, including Lindor, that are more than likely not going to be. So I'm going to refrain from saying that. I mean, touch back with me, throughout the season as well, when there's more certainty as to who's going to be a free agent that is definitely hitting the market.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, don't even know who's going to be free agents like after this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of big names. It's all infield names that I kind of told you about a bit. Like, again, Lindor, Story, Arenado has a possibility to opt out, even though I don't think he would. Bryant, Javi Baez, the list goes on. Like, there's a lot of, all-star players right there, and that's why a lot of people are very interested to see how next year is going to shape out. Okay, let's see. Lauren says, do you have any extra promotion bobbleheads? I do not, my friend. I apologize. Yeah, no, I literally have little to nothing in regards to bobbleheads as it is. I have one DeGrom bobblehead that I actually got when he won his first Cy Young, but that was only because of the fact that I had a buddy that was able to give it to me, that was able to get it too, because his brother didn't need it. So I asked him, if he doesn't want it, can I have it? And he's like, yeah. And then the other one I was a Todd Frazier one from the 2019 season with a WWE belt in his hand. That's all I got. Let's see here. Any more good questions you see? I'm just scrolling through.
Yeah. I saw something that who is our favorite rival?
Oh,
I don't know if
okay.
that's a. I don't
Ooh.
know how to answer that.
Oh, like who do you think is the Mets' biggest rival? Probably like who do you enjoy? Like who do you love to hate the most? I think that's probably easy.
Going back, that's just in my blood, but they're not that much of a rival anymore, just because the Braves are so good. But the Phillies, I mean,
Yes.
I always just think of Jimmy Rollins and Howard back in the
Oh my,
day,
and Utley,
and
don't even get me started.
Utley. Yeah, so the Phillies are always be in my blood, but the Phillies haven't been that great recent memory. But now they're definitely on the rise with Bryce Harper, and they got Wheeler, and we know they're on the upcoming. But yeah, it's funny because I don't really hate the Braves that much. I obviously hate the Braves, but compared to the Phillies, just because it's instilled in me of pain when I was so young, where the Phillies will always be my least favorite team outside of the Yankees.
Yeah.
Even though the Yankees aren't a rival just because they're in another league, but it's just because, like I told you guys earlier, just I grew up with fans just shitting on me because I'm not a Yankees fan. So I'm like, screw you guys.
Yeah, no, I think I agree, especially with Phillies, because like I live in Pennsylvania, so I'm not far away from Philly at all, and like all my literally like my closest friend is a diehard Phillies fan. He's a schmuck. He's like all New York, but baseball, because he's like I need to at least have one team that's like from the area. I made him a Rangers fan, and he's a Knicks fan for basketball, but he literally has to be a Phillies fan. So I can't. I go to Philly games more often than I go to Citi Field for Mets games. So it's definitely Philly's top dog. Yanks are right there too. But the Yanks experience is something I look forward to hating more as I get older because I've never been to Yankee Stadium yet. I've been to one Subway Series game when I was younger. That's when Matt Harvey was still the Dark Knight. I'm trying to think, that was my freshman year of high school, so shit.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember what year that was, but Harvey pitched a gem. I think he only gave up one run. It was a Sunday night. It was a Sunday night baseball game.
Against the
And
Yankees?
yeah, it was against the Yankees, and Carlos Beltran, of course, hit the game-winning home run like late in the game for the Yanks. I think it was like a 2-1 game.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, so that was a good experience though. Let's see here. If you had to trade Smith, what type of player you think he can bring back? Ooh, tough question. All right, so in this scenario where you have to trade Dom Smith, what player could you bring back? I think if you're trading away Dom Smith, you could definitely bring back, with him being, like the core piece, you can bring back a star player in the league right now. He has a lot of value. You'd probably add more with him. You're not just trading Dom one for one for someone. I don't see that making sense, but I think in regards to, especially, not that I would necessarily want to see it happen per se, but like my dream guy at center field, I've been saying this a while, it ain't going to happen more than likely, but just would make sense for the Mets in my opinion, is Byron Buxton. And I know that the Twins would be asking a haul for him. So Dom Smith could make sense as like the main piece there. Just as a hypothetical, I don't see it happening. But what do you think? What type of player or position do you think the Mets would address should they trade away Dom Smith?
Quick shout out to Mets Nation. Richie, I'm subscribed to your channel now. Thank you so much for the subscription, bro. Appreciate that a ton.
Thank you,
And
Elliot.
yeah, to answer your question, yeah, thanks. Oh, his name's Elliot. Thank you so much, Elliot. Appreciate it, man. Glad to have you on the wave. So I think that Dom Smith's value is definitely through the roof, and I'm gonna go the different route here. Maybe we can trade him for a really top prospect. Maybe there's a team out there that wants to bring him in now. They have a win now mindset, and they don't really have anybody on their roster currently playing that they want to give up. They'll give up part of their farm system to bring him in to go win the World Series. And we kind of have a short-term / long-term mindset all of a sudden, and we want to get a top prospect for Dom Smith. I don't know if that's a popular take, but maybe we can get one of the top 5 prospects, top 10 prospects in the MLB for him. You never know.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that would definitely be a surprise, no doubt. The Mets were to deal Dom. I think Dom would probably be more likely to be part of ways in a package right now. But again, the Mets have been so surprising this offseason that I think anything is up for the taking at this point. So interesting. Not a bad take. Let's see here. Joe says, that was hilarious. I deliver mail to Austin Davis, Phillies, and he just heard you trashing Philadelphia. Oh, wow, that's funny. That's great, Joe. You hate to see it, right? But yeah, no, again, it's all love. All right, let's see. Any more questions? Do you think it's possible, makes sense for the Mets to trade for Nolan? Do I think it makes sense for them to trade for Nolan? Yes. Do I think it's likely right now? No. The upside to the Nolan Arenado sweepstakes, though, I will say, just for the people watching, is the fact that talks are picking up right now. And if talks are picking up, then that very well means that there are other teams that are going to start chiming in. Could the Mets have not been much of a chime in right now, and very well are, and we just don't know about it? Sure, that's very much a possibility. Just because the reporters aren't saying that they hear anything doesn't mean that isn't happening. They didn't hear anything about Lindor until he came to the Mets. All there was before that was that there were reports right as Steve Cohen became new owner for the Mets that the Cleveland Indians said, and I quote, "We want to pursue aggressively getting rid of Lindor in a trade with the Mets." But there was never two sides of the coin. There was never reported interest from the Mets. It was all just one way. Same thing with the Rockies, doing the exact same thing with Arenado and the Mets. That came out over the past couple months. So again, if the Mets do get Arenado, I have that gut feeling that it would not happen in the sense of us knowing about it until, bam, it's executed.
Yeah, man, I agree with everything you said. I feel like it's not a priority for us to get Arenado, and I do think it's a good idea to go pursue him, but I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't expect it to happen either.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think we passed the 50 mark now, so I think that's going to wrap up everything for the stream. So, again, Richie, thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. If you guys haven't subscribed to Richie already at Mets Media, and if you're a Jets fan, Knicks fan, make sure you do that right now. What the hell are you doing? Hit those buttons as always. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. As always, if you're new to the channel, guys, you enjoy consistent Mets content, look no further. We're doing great things here. Would love for you to be part of the Wardy NYM family, and we're doing great things on Richie's channel too. So it looks like we'll be doing episode 2 probably sometime next week over there. So I'll inform you guys more on that situation once we have clarity. But Richie, any final words before I let you out of here?
Yeah, man, just want to thank you again. We finally got this collaboration. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. The story goes back to right when I made my press conference video. Tyler commented on my video, and we got into DMs. We started talking, and we both clicked right away. We're both in this YouTube grind together. We're both diehard Mets fans, so I'm proud to finally get onto a collaboration with you, man. It's going to be a really fun ride. I'm excited to have weekly streams. And yeah, if you guys are not subscribed to Wardy NYM, I don't know why you're not. If you're in this stream and you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my guy Tyler. Also smash that thumbs up button so we get as many Mets fans in here as possible, because that's what it's all about. The only reason why we're telling you guys to hit that like button is because we want to get a very fluid Mets fan base in here. We can answer all your questions, have a very healthy community. Mets fans, the community is very good. The energy, the enthusiasm, the passion is real. We're probably one of the most passion fan bases in baseball, and it's going to be a crazy ride now they got a new owner. And again, I'm really thankful to be part of the stream with you, man. And stay tuned for more Mets content on my channel. We'll be live on Mets Media next week. So again, thank you so much for having me on, Tyler, and looking forward to the future.
Yeah, no, appreciate you. Thank you all for the kind words as always, guys. And thank you all so much again, the chat, guys. Let's go Mets. Richie, let's go Mets.
You got to believe, baby. Let's go Mets.
All right, perfect.